All right, we should be live. Good morning, everybody. If it's morning for you, of course. It is for me, so nice and early in the morning. Got some coffee, though. I'm good to go. If it's morning for you, of course. It is. Gotta mute my own speakers, the output. I'll get used to this live streaming at some point, I promise. But until then, we'll just hear a little bit of output, I guess. Hopefully you guys are all good. All right, so I had two pre-questions already, so I'll go ahead and probably just start with that. Obviously, I want to make this kind of at least a yearly thing. Again, I don't always live stream. It's sometimes a little difficult for me because of my son, who I posted about kind of earlier. I mean, I got 4 kids, right, and they're all like really loud. But he doesn't necessarily get quiet when you tell him to, right? So in case you didn't know, I have a special needs son that can sometimes be a little loud. But we'll do just fine, I think. I think we'll do all right. Okay, so can you confirm and let me know that everything looks good or sounds good? Well, it's good enough. So it begins. And then, of course, there was a little bit of a delay when it comes to the streaming, so just be aware of that. All good, all good. Cool. I've traditionally had the sound not so good, so. All right, let's see. We're going to start with, I think, the first question that came in. I think it may have been removed or changed or something like that, but I remember it. It asked about Primal and the shipping. So we're going to start just going real quick into it. So I haven't looked at how much Primal's going to cost me to ship yet. I need to. I'm a little behind. I'm so behind that I actually have the final production plastic minis, all the correct size, the exact ones that everybody's getting, and I haven't unboxed it yet. So if you didn't know, I worked with them to do some of the shipping. Or it's not the shipping, God, no. With some of the minis. And I came in after the fact, right? So it was after they had already kind of sculpted, even picked a manufacturer, stuff like that. But I helped work with the manufacturer to try and get as best of a result as they could. And that took, sometimes it was right off the bat, they did a great job. Sometimes it took 8, 9, 10, 11 rounds between they would give us something and then I would look over it and they would look over and be like, it looks great. And I'm like, yeah, it looks great, but right here, we can enhance the texture here or add the detail here, or they remove texture here or something like that. It's a whole song and dance. It was a long, drawn-out process. They definitely spent the money to get good minis. If you didn't know, manufacturers will print anything you tell them to. And so if you tell them to print a crap mini, or if you give them something and they make some changes and you just say, yep, good, and then they go and you're smooth and you're good and it goes quick and you get some crappy minis in return. This is universally the case for just about every manufacturer. You always have a few rounds. In fact, when they offer you a deal, often they'll include some rounds essentially for free, like, hey, we're going to work on this. Because you give them the render, essentially like an STL kind of thing, right? Though it's not a any layerized thing or anything like that. And then they have their own sculptors, engineers with great talent and all that stuff that try and make it to where it can actually be injected with plastic and a mass production thing and like a typically a steel that you can choose other metals mold. And that there's needs on how high pressure you can actually send that plastic, how long it goes in there to be able to go, how much you need. There's a whole lot to it, and that is their expertise, right? Not your sculptors, typically. And so they'll do that and they'll make it, but it won't necessarily be what you want it to, right? You had these super sharp teeth on this, giant monster, like for like a Primal thing. And then when they give it to you, oh, hey, we like rounded it out and thickened it out so he looks like a baby T-Rex now, getting his, like, he doesn't have his adult teeth yet kind of thing. And so there's that sort of detail you kind of have to work on. Long after I'm done with that, they increase the size of many of the bosses you're fighting, the monsters, like 3 times. Like they're like bigger, which is cool, which is great. But I suspect that played partially into shipping because now obviously it's bigger, right? And bigger means more costly. So that was a complaint I think a lot of people had. Like even when I was showing it off, where they were like the monsters weren't quite as big as they were hoping scale wise, right? Because what SFG did with Monster Hunter was make the players smaller, right? So you're like a 15, 20 millimeter kind of guy, so the monster's much bigger than you. And in Primal, you're kind of a normal size, so the monsters weren't quite as big. So I think that's what they were trying to do. I suspect that played a part in it, but I don't know. I'll have to check on that. Okay, so I'm just going to go kind of down the list here. What was your first gaming love? What was your hottest gaming love? And what is your current gaming love? Whew, getting hot in here, huh? The first gaming love, I'm assuming we're talking board games only, in which case, Zombicide. It's what got me into the industry. I think I've said this a few times, so I won't spend like forever on it, but started in my actual career doing software development, so there's a whole bunch of like, nerdy dudes programming and whatnot, and they had a game night, and I'm like, game night? Shoot, I used to go to like LAN parties, yeah, let's do that, and they're like, nah, this is gonna be like a board game, and I'm like, I used to play Magic, I guess, yeah, sure, why not? I play Monopoly and Clue and Sorry, and I do all, like I legit would play the game of life, and I'd play Monopoly and stuff. So I liked board games ish, but typically I'd load up a video game over play Monopoly. So I go there and it's Zombicide, and I see these like big minis, and I see I can dual wield machetes or get an Uzi and stuff like that, and I had a huge blast. It was the Prison Outbreak one. And so that, I was like, that's awesome. That's great. So definitely Zombicide, I think, was my first. What was your hottest gaming love? I don't know how to answer that. I think probably the hottest I was on something, as in like I really liked it, was so obviously like Warhammer, I got really into Warhammer. But for like board games, probably Limbo Eternal War. When I saw the minis for that, I about lost my mind. I was ecstatic over it. I was like, this is like the best thing ever. These minis are so cool. The style of the minis are so cool. The quality is awesome. It's a cool skirmish game. I love it. Hate might be a runner-up though, because I thought the theme was like hardcore and edgy and awesome, and the minis were super freaking cool, and you could like, eat your opponent and just like cannibalize them. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I was like drawn to that kind of stuff pretty early on. And then current gaming love, I've actually, okay, so this sounds cheesy, but often it's the new hotness, right? I mean, it's whatever is like on the table that I'm really enjoying or whatever. So like when I was playing Singularity, I really loved Singularity. I've been playing Chronicles of Drunagar. I really loved Chronicles of Drunagar Apocalypse, so I'm just like you guys. I nerd out all these board games, and I get the Kickstarter and get all excited, right? And I think Alex has talked about this a bit about the kind of the cult of the new, I think is how he words it. But anyway, it's just whatever the new hotness is, right? And it's hard to kind of counter that, because at the end of the day, these games are cool, right? Or we wouldn't be here. And it's exciting to get new ones and try them out and see what's different. So who is the best looking patron backer you have? Look, I know the patrons try to compete on this, but I'm the only one that's taken a picture in a hot tub so far, so I think it'd still be me. What would you recommend someone who has lost faith in the kickstarting industry? That's a great question. Thank you, Ismail, and great to see all of you guys, by the way. That's something I actually have a few videos almost planned on. One thing I just talked about with, so I met with SFG, right? And one of the things I was talking about is a video I'm going to be making in the future that I kind of have planned. And if you didn't know, I essentially have a Trello board that I just like write ideas down and do stuff like that, right? And then I try and get them when I can. And I mentioned that we used to go to Kickstarter for a deal, right? Just amazing steals. Like, it's like what we would call them, stealing, where it's like you wanted $1 per mini or less. Sometimes people would calculate, oh, we're at like 85 cents a mini. Like, it was crazy. It was like the Wild West, right? It was amazing. You could drop down $100 and get over 100 minis in return, plus the board game on top of it. And the board game might actually be half good. It took a while, I think, for mini Kickstarter games to actually be like legitimately good like they are now. So there was kind of the minis are all it's about, and the games suck at the time. But like that was like a thing. That's what we were doing. It then shifted from that to kind of like this premium, right? This like collector's edition. I talked about this a few times, where it's like, oh, we just want like the most premium deluxeified version of that. We totally can. And there's a few of those, like that food game, kind of still out there like that. Even companies like Come On would start doing premium upgrades where suddenly all I'm getting is acrylic tokens, and then Chip Theory Games comes out and everything's like neoprene everything and weighted chips, and like we went on like super fancy, super nice stuff. And of course the problem with that is typically they raise the price but not nearly as much as the manufacturing cost goes, so you're actually now on like even slimmer margins than before. And so I think what we need to start looking at is what is a safe back, right? So it was a deal, then it was premium, and I think now we just need safe. For somebody who I think has lost faith in it, I think there's a tendency to focus on the negative, and I think the negative is important to talk about. I always have, and so that's why I run the channel the way I have, because I think it's great to learn from the mistakes of others. It's good to be informed. It's good to be real about a situation, not just like sugarcoat something or make it seem like it's not a big deal if it actually is, because then corrections won't happen. And I've kind of gone into all that, but it's so easy. I'll make a news video, and I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but I've tended to start to separate the negative news out of my news videos, so that I'm not just like, oh, here's this great indie company making this cool board game that I think looks great. Also, this is on fire and it's terrible, and you should never do anything in this space again, right? Like when you say it in the same space, every single comment I would get would be about the negative. Everybody forgets about the positive. And this is just general human nature, right? I think we all do this, right? We mark our history from wars. We remember all of the like fights that we had and stuff like that, but we don't remember the nice things somebody did necessarily, right? So we always focus on the negative. I do a retrospective on our like development cycle when we like ship something and something like that. And so we'll have a retrospective, and it's almost universally based off of typically what's bad. We'll have to like think about what was good, what worked well. It's just human nature, I think. But there's a lot of positive out there, a lot of great companies making great games and delivering them consistently. There's a lot of outstanding indies that are showing super duper promise, and it's still a great place to be in. But yeah, there are some negatives. The important part is to not have that wash over everything else, is what I would say at least. But, obviously be careful as well. Okay, let's see. Hey, King, I know you are a board game channel. Correct. What was your favorite video game? Also, what's your favorite genre of video game? So this is something this was probably the first time I really connected with Alex. We were talking, and sure enough, he was super into video games too. And I let him know that there's a kind of a deep, dark secret that I actually tend to like video games more than board games. Mainly because I get to play them more, because, I don't really play board games solo. And so it's just easier to schedule something with yourself late at night or something like that, as opposed to, getting people to, come around and get their schedules aligned and all be there and then like play a board game. So I love video games, and I actually like come from a consumer of that industry, which led a bit into how I started this channel, right? If you've watched YouTube coverage in video games, you know how angry Joes can be, or how upset Jims can be, and if you know who these people are, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like it's very common to yell at the company, these stupid AAA games and EA and Ubisoft and all this stuff, right? And so I kind of came in like that. So I think the question was, what is your favorite genre of video game? That's a tough one. I tend to play a lot of them. I think if I had to pick a favorite, it'd probably be JRPGs. I don't play a lot of the cringe JRPGs, right? But like my favorite, I actually have it still up there. Legend of Dragoon from the PlayStation 1 was a favorite of mine for sure. I like the Nier series, right, more recently. So I have a lot of that kind of stuff, and played most of the Final Fantasies, enjoy them. So there's a lot of, I don't know, maybe it's the anime-ish part of it, I'm not sure, or just the kind of storytelling they do is a little bit different than Western audiences. They tend not to do a whole lot of open world stuff. I tend to get really bored of open world stuff because I can't I'm like a completionist, so I can't like skip things. So if there's something on the mini map, I have to like go investigate it, and then I never do the main story. Then I get bored of just going through like random side quest junk for forever. So that's kind of the struggle there. Though I do really enjoy Fallout more than like Skyrim kind of stuff actually. So I enjoyed that as well. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. If I had to pick a favorite genre, it'd probably be the JRPGs. I recently got a PlayStation Portal, which I know a lot of people won't get, but for me, if I'm up here, my PlayStation's downstairs, whatever, I can play it, real quick, get some time in. And recently I've been playing through an old game, Star Ocean Till the End of Time. So I've been enjoying that. I'm almost done with it though. Okay, what's your favorite paint job from yourself? Can you show it? Favorite? Yeah, I can. Be right back. Enjoy my background. Okay, so I probably have two. You're your own worst critic, I suppose. The one I would probably normally show, though, I'd have to get the box out and find the box. A Gluttony from Limbo Eternal War. I think I did a pretty good job on. This is Fate from Kingdom Death Monster. So I painted her. She's pregnant. And like also holding a baby behind her back with a sword. And this was a gift to my wife, actually, because she was just getting into kind of the industry. I obviously got into it a little bit earlier. And this is before she even painted minis, though she does now paint more minis more than I do. And she was like, well, yeah, but I mean, all the minis are the same. Like, they don't make a pregnant mini, right? And I'm like, yes, they do. Kingdom Death Monster. And she's like, what? And so I show her a picture of this, right? I haven't even bought it yet. And she's like, what is she wearing, seatbelts? Because she's got like the straps or whatever. So it's Kingdom Death Monster. It's stupid. But, it's also interesting and different and unique. And so it actually spawned like her online name on Discord. And it was this whole thing. And there was a big joke. And we had a great time with it. We were laughing a lot. I ended up buying the mini and then painting it for her, and so she's always liked that. This right here is a stolen from Hobby Lobby. I probably shouldn't admit that online, but there was the fake flowers, right? Like you can get a lot of cool terrain from like fake flowers, and there was like this, but it was like hanging. It was like already like broken, right? It was like some frilly stuff and part of like a bouquet kind of thing, and so I was just like snip. I'm like, this looks like a tree. So that's what I used it as. It's pretty cool. All right, but that's probably, I think I did a pretty good job on it, I suppose. Probably hard to see on the camera real quick like this. Normally I adjust lighting and do some editing to make sure minis look really good on camera when I'm like recording. Nothing wrong with the kiddo noises. Good. Hopefully it's not too bad. When is your Gambler's Chest unboxing? Okay, look, and separate mini overcoming. I got the Gambler's Chest a while ago. I'm still building it. The idea was, the naive assumption is instead of just doing a normal unboxing, I would build every single miniature in the Gambler's Chest and then show it off. Because I thought that'd be unique. I thought, there's probably not a lot of people that would do that. It'd be interesting. People could go back and like even reference it and stuff. Like it might actually be useful for people, not just entertaining. But it'd also be cool to kind of see the whole thing, especially and hear from somebody who actually built them, right? Because some of these Kingdom Death Monster minis, you can get an amazing Games Workshop mini, and it comes in like 3 pieces. The last person I built in the Gambler's Chest was 16 pieces. It's like, dear Lord. Fate here, I actually had to get customer service twice because half of her wrist, which is like this big, is a piece. Like it's the tiniest little stupidest thing ever. And I think they do it because they hate me. I don't know. But either way, it's taken a long time to build it, and obviously I don't have all the time to do it, so it's really late. Once I have it all built, though, I'll probably still do it because, I already put in the effort into it. I think it'd still be interesting. I try to be interested in the things I do, right? So I think it'd be kind of cool, but it's going to be late. I still have a couple sprues left. Okay, you must get a lot of offers to preview upcoming games and their prototypes. With your limited time, how do you decide which to accept prototypes and which to cover? That's a hard one. It's kind of a know it if you see it kind of thing. Early on, I think a lot of us learn how to, I guess I would say, learn how to navigate what we like and don't like, right? Because I think often we'll visually like a game, but then mechanically not. Or almost vice versa, right? But either way, typically first thing we see is the art, right? As a presentation, stuff like that. And, sometimes stuff looks cooler than it is. So you definitely want to do that because you don't want to waste their time shipping you a prototype for something you're not going to enjoy anyway. And, like why do that? I have such limited time that I need to be playing games I think I'll enjoy. And, if a game doesn't look like it matches my taste, what good is it to my viewers? Obviously, you guys should at least in some way match at least part of my taste or have similar sensibilities on certain things. So if I'm like randomly doing something that doesn't match that, it's of limited value, right, to the audience that I have, and in that case, then to the people. Early on, you don't know that, and also early on, not everybody's working with you, so you're just kind of desperate, and so often you just say yes, hey, yeah, sure, yeah, whatever, I'll cover anything, just because then at least you can. I used to not cover them prototypes at all. That was the stance on the channel, just because it wasn't finalized and stuff like that. But and it's a little bit more work, right? So when you do a normal board game, all the rule book's done. It's all in English, right? All the components are there. You're not messing with any funny stuff. You didn't unbox it from a shoebox, which I've done before, right? And so prototypes can take a lot more effort. The rules, if they're not even always all in English, often they're just in a really long Word document. That's like 86 pages or some stupid junk. And then there's ambiguity, and you got to ask the developer. And I mean, there's a whole work to that. So how I decide is basically if I think I'll like it or not. I do tend to prioritize indies more than the big ones, just because I like helping indies, and I like if I can help somebody, get a game out there and actually show it to people. Often, if it's a big game, you're going to hear about it elsewhere, but you may never hear about this indie game or whatever, so do that. That being said, it involves me reading all of my emails, and that's something I've continually struggled with. It's something I hope to solve going into next year, where I'm actually going to set up kind of a second account under the umbrella that has access to my contact at kingofaverage.com. And ideally what they're going to do is just go through the emails and kind of curate a little bit for me. So I can be like, this person needs a response, and these people are asking questions, and this person gave you a video idea, and this. Because I get literally at sometimes hundreds a week, easily. And then if you count in all the Kickstarter updates, which I spend a long time reading even before the news and stuff like that, like I'll miss things. So often I'll come in and I'll see an email from 3 months ago, and I'm like, oh shoot, that would have been a cool game. I wish I had had asked them about it, right? So I have to catch it too. I mean, at that point, that's almost the crux of the issue, is even seeing the offer, and then of course working with them to do it, because sometimes it's like, okay, we're not ready yet, but we'll ping you back then, and so then I have to put it on my calendar, and so often there's a little bit of work involved in that, and getting everything, not just my address, but making sure they understand my review style, and making sure that, hey, by the way, I don't accept money for reviews and stuff like that, because often they'll ask for my price, which I think says a lot about the industry and the necessity of it, I would say as well. What's up with Monolith right now? Yeah, what is up with Monolith? It seems like they're putting on a how not to run a Kickstarter clinic. Philip, could you tell me which game you're talking about specifically? I know that I think it was Ragnarok, though it might have been the Batman Gotham City Chronicles Season 3. Either way, one of those, they've told me it's their last one they're doing like that, because they're stopping this whole oh, hey, we're not fully developed yet. Here's a game, now we have to go and develop it, right? Which is kind of the old style of Kickstarter, and more people are now getting much farther along in development, so it's not so long. That being said, I still see stuff I think even the latest Awaken Realms one is over a year out kind of thing. I'm so a lot of these are they still haven't made the game, obviously. It's not just manufacturing, it's they need to develop it and play test and do all that. But then you get stuff Storm Thunder, or you get stuff like Dawn of Madness, or stuff like Gambler's Chest, where you funded it back then. Now you have to develop all, and then you have to deliver it. Sorry. And that can be kind of difficult. So they said they're not doing that anymore. So if they come to Kickstarter, the future ones will be better. That's the word on the street anyway. But I would love to hear your kind of specific ask about that. But yeah, I'm assuming Conan's going to come pretty quick, and that's their next one. with the PvP skirmish style. Hey King, did you look into Lucky Duck Games or Eldorado Games? Still in the dark. No, though I do have them listed. So I get asked a lot to look into a company. Like I just did SFG, right? You guys saw that, and I'll have a follow-up with that here soon. Obviously, it takes a long time to do it because I tend to go pretty in-depth now. Often I will reach out, especially if it's something specific like this. So the SFG thing was happened chance. I did not go into the video assuming that's what I would do, but obviously I ended up investigating it. But for stuff like that where people are like, hey, could you look into Lucky Duck Games? Hey, could you look into Eldorado? Hey, could you look into Senjutsu? Hey, can you look into, whatever? I get a lot of those, and I note every one of them. So I have, again, the Trello board. I have a thing, and personally, this is like offline. It just says scams ? Right? And it's just a list of things to look into. That, hey, people have mentioned there's some issue there, but obviously it involves reading comments, it means reading updates, it means checking out their Facebook, it means checking out their previous stuff, it means looking at any website statements they might have done, right? Like Blacklist Games likes to post on Facebook and their website. I think it was the last time I showed off stuff from them. Not even, I don't even think I showed a Kickstarter update. I think it was all off Kickstarter. So there's a lot of like involvement there. And sometimes if I can, or it's like, all right, we need to look into one of these. I'll pick one out of the hat, two out of the hat, something like that on like a Saturday or something and kind of sit there and look through it. Again, it takes time. And sadly, this is not my full-time job, so I can only dedicate so much to it. So I'm behind on that. It's kind of a long list at this point, so I haven't looked into that. I'm sorry. I'll try and put that towards the top, though. Have you added John Company 2nd edition to your wish list? I have no idea what John Company is. It sounds thrilling. FMC is probably higher on his wish list. Yeah, food chain. Oh yeah, I love food. You guys, Sexy Gandalf knows. I love food. Will you be providing an index for this video? That's kind of like the timestamps, huh? Probably not on this one. It would take a long time. If one of you want to do a timestamp where I do a question and then an answer, assuming I structure this video in a format that works for that, sometimes I can get a little meandering. Then I think that'd be great. Timestamps are awesome, and I know they're helpful, but they do take some time, right? Because like you try to get it down to like the second, sometimes even more. And so it's like, oh, you want to be able to click there and actually then not have me like start mid-sentence or whatever. And it just takes time. And it's kind of like documenting in the software development world where it's like, I've already done the main content. Now I have to document it. I'll just go move on to the next one, right? So it's like, oh, I could work on a video or I could work on the timestamps. Typically, I work on the video for a video or kind of like this anyway. News videos, I still try to really do it, but in the editing process of there, I put those little texts, and I know those. I don't know if those texts are helpful for you. The little kind of, I think they're calling them like the bottom 3/4 or something. There's a term for it anyway. It's helpful for me because the editing software I can just go to that timestamp. So it helps a little bit. It still takes time even doing that. Armado asking important stuff. For sure, Techno Mages obviously are the coolest B5 faction. Do you agree? Techno Mages are pretty cool. However, you need to watch Crusade to really appreciate the Techno Mages, and that means you're watching Crusade, which is not as good as B5. So it's kind of interesting. I actually really liked the Psy-Core for B5 proper more than Techno Mages, mainly because I had never seen a sci-fi deal with what would actually mean when it comes to society if telepaths were a real thing and people could actually read your mind. Like, what would that involve? And I think they did a really good job of exploring that. I really wish we had gotten the telepath wars and something other than hinted at books. Okay, not to get too nerdy. If you don't know what Babylon 5 is, you were probably kind of confused on that. My scroll bar jumped, so one moment. Hopefully I'm keeping up a little bit. What other tabletop content creators do you watch? Honestly, not a whole lot. For a couple reasons, actually. I used to watch a lot more before I started my channel. Obviously, my time on YouTube watching videos is more limited now, just because I'm busy making YouTube videos, of course. Part of it is just a general style thing. There was, even when I was first getting into it, I tend to have a style that not all board game channels kind of have. And so a lot of them are just like, look at this like cool game. It's like, I already know about that game, like, so there's a lot of that kind of stuff. I used to watch a lot of miniature painting content. So I used to watch like, Miniac and stuff like that a lot. Uncle Adam, right, from Tabletop Minions. I'll watch him sometimes still. Probably of the ones you guys, like new stuff, it's probably just, for the most part, Alex. I'll watch some of his videos now from Board Game Co. But again, I don't watch a whole lot. Part of it is also focusing on me. So I used to, and this is kind of a personal problem I had, especially when I first started. I would compare myself to others, and it can quickly burn you out. Let's say, so I know a lot of you miniature paint. If you go to Instagram or follow certain Facebook groups or, Pinterest or whatever it is, and you see these amazing miniature painting, and everybody's doing it seems everybody can paint like a god, and you're over here like struggling for 8 hours to like dot I's and just make sure you don't have any gray that you forgot to paint, kind of thing. Like average is in the name, right? So I would compare myself like, oh, this guy got this many views, and oh man, look, they partnered with him. They didn't even return my email and stuff like. And so like, especially early on, I would focus on everybody else, and I would look at everybody else, and I would keep Excel sheets with like tracking trajectories, like, oh, in this month they grew this much and I grew this much, but then I got this many, and I would try to just always compare myself to others constantly. And it wears you out. It's not cool. Additionally, if you recall, I used to like comment on how they would do stuff. Like, I know what their audience wants, like an idiot, but that's what I did. And I ended up having to kind of turn it over and just say, I just need to focus on what I'm doing and just do what I want to do and be happy with what I'm doing and not worry if XYZ got with this company and they're paying him for it and they didn't even return my email, or they did, but they certainly weren't going to pay me for it, or that person got way more views and they covered the same thing I did or whatever. So part of it's that, right? Just a focus on me and not competing with others, which if I watch others, I tend to compare, especially if they're in the board game space, right? Because that means we're kind of doing the same thing. So that's part of it. The other part is I'll also purposely avoid a lot of videos because I don't want to go into something with information already in my head. Now, this is semi not avoidable, right? Like that scam list, right? Where I'm like, oh, I need to look into that. I'm now looking into it with this in my head that, hey, some people think this is an issue. And for a targeted video like that, that's helpful. But if I was to watch somebody's review of the game, and then I review the game, invariably, either I'll feel, oh, they've already said that, so I'm not going to say it, even if I would have said it differently or had a different example or whatever, or I go into it thinking that, and so now I'm just regurgitating what they've already said, and I wouldn't have normally even mentioned that. Or, do you get what I'm saying? So it can color my review. Sometimes I'll review a game and then watch other people's reviews. Not too often, but sometimes I do. I try to do my own thing and focus on that. And if I see, oh, hey, like I recently watched an Alex video, and I hadn't seen him do the side-by-side, view where he has the tablet that's kind of in a portrait view, and so he can kind of do that. Like, that's a nice camera angle, and like I hadn't even thought about that. And so then now I'm like, well, maybe I should just work on changing my edit. So like it spawns work sometimes too. But yeah, probably Alex and Maniac probably for the most part on in this space. I noticed you skipped my first question. I did not mean to. I apologize. Was it the hottest backer thing? Because I did answer that, Crimson Sun. Take no mages. You think so? I'm not. Oh yeah, we're talking about B5 again. You guys don't care about that. What other table? Okay. It seems like board game developers are having an arms race trying to outdo the last blinged out game. Where does it end? Yeah. The problem is this is okay. So I hate this. I really do. Because I for a while I tried to push back on this, and I hate when people say this, but I want to say it. Board gaming is a luxury, hobby, pastime, thing to buy. So I know a lot of like the economy and stuff like that. Often you can do a lot of testing. I read a few articles about this once, so I can't cite them or anything. It was years ago, but they were looking at like whether or not we're in a recession, and one of the things they looked at was RV sales. Apparently, it's a good judge of it. If people are buying RVs, then they must be doing pretty okay, right? It's obviously an extra thing you do, especially late, when you're older. I guess often if your kids are struggling or whatever, you're going to help with them a little bit more and stuff like that. So as you age, typically it's older gentlemen buying RVs. Kind of like board games, I guess. But either way, like the buying of RVs and the sales that they have can kind of indicate how the economy is doing. And I almost feel like board games are kind of a similar thing when it comes to the Kickstarter board games specifically. So retail, I think, has a lot of good options for people that, just don't want to spend more than $35 on a game. You can do that. You can go to a game store, and there's a ton of selection there for you, though even less and less, right? It is kind of an expensive thing to make, just invariably. And the market only sustains so much for what you value it. I talked about how we counted how many minis you got per dollar, right? I mean, there's a limit to, it costs this much to make this stupid game, right? But yet I can only charge this much for this stupid game, because if I charge more, people are going to look and they're like, why the heck would I pay that for that game? And so as manufacturing costs go up, one of the ways you can raise the price is by going premium. Additionally, a lot of us have the expendable income to do it. I talked about wanting more standee options, more smaller core pledges and all that, but then every time I look, it's like a fifth, if not less, of the backers are backing that. The majority of people all in every time, all the time, instantly. Like, that is like what, it doesn't matter, $400, let's do it. They just have that kind of expendable income, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? Of course, I mean, actually good for them. That's awesome that they can do that. But it does tend to lead to that kind of a more premium thing. I think there's a reason that so many of us are either single dudes or dudes with a fairly well-off job. By the majority. I mean, there's everybody in between, of course. But that's often the case because these things are expensive, and we like them, and we like them very premium and nice. We don't want the cheap stuff. We're passionate about it. If we're spending that money anyway, we as well get it nice. So where does it end? I'm not sure it could. Looking at like the food magnet thing, right? I mean, a lot of us are like, oh, it's expensive. But a lot of people are like, yeah, sure, I love the game. It's premium. It's nice. I want to get it. I've seen people spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a knife set because it's nice and cool. I mean, people do that for sound systems and do it for cars and do it for houses and all sorts of stuff. For the board games, there's a lot of people that have no problem throwing down some good money for it. You also have to sell less too, right? So in a way, it's almost kind of nicer. I wonder what the risk factor is on that. I talked about safe backing. Is it better to make fewer games, to ship fewer games around the world, to deal with fewer people because it's super expensive, but then also have it super premium, so it's not like a terrible deal for them. It's just not everybody can get it. Well, I don't know. It'd be kind of interesting to kind of mull over. So the last big steal on Kickstarter must have been Frosthaven, right? I don't know. I never opened my copy. I literally never did. So it's right there. It's in a box, top shelf. The box it came in. I should have opened that. Oh well. What do you do? Yeah, I don't know. What was the last deal, right? I think the last really good deal that was like a steal was anything you bought at the end of 2019. That was right before COVID really hit the board game industry. It was still like the heyday. It was at like the maximized heyday of Kickstarter for that. And so many games were coming out that were just crazy wild. A lot of those still haven't delivered, those ones you did at the end of 2019, because then COVID hit and they ran out of money, and then they have to go do the whole silent dance of whatever it is that they do to try and solve the money cash flow problem. Probably Oathsworn. I would say the first Oathsworn. Because Jamie, with Shadowborn Games, he did something that most companies should never do, and I don't suggest ever repeating this, but it worked for him and he lucked out, which is purposely go into the industry not expecting a profit at first. So he had financial means enough and believed in his game enough and risked it and won enough, though just barely. He did have to charge some shipping stuff because, again, his profits were like nothing, right? So he was charging so little and giving so much with these hips miniatures, a multi-part. You could swap out the weapons and do all this stuff, and these big monster minis and like all of this writing and all this art and everything. It was a super premium, nice game with lots of stuff, big boxes full of stuff, for a like crazy good deal, especially that first Kickstarter, knowing it wasn't profitable. That means like most companies can't do that and probably shouldn't. You should start with a very safe one, right? Maybe something smaller with good profit margins that your company can grow from. But no, he risked it for the biscuit, and thankfully he got the biscuit. But it was pretty scary. But again, that was like end of 2019. You could do stuff like that and kind of get away with it a little bit. All right, it's still hell. Let's see. He mentioned he himself was the only one. So yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at all of Patreon and YouTube membership, I'm the only one with a YouTube or a hot tub pick. I'm just saying. So, what is your favorite dungeon crawler and why? Mechanized wise, perhaps. Ooh, or mechanic wise. Mechanized. Mechanic wise, perhaps. That is a good one. Because I guess some of it is kind of like hard to say. Like, well, what is a dungeon crawl? Right? Like what defines that? Which is kind of hard. I would say, and again, this is maybe a little bit of a hot take on what you define as a dungeon crawl. This is a hard one. So I really like Oko Chronicles because it's a dungeon crawl, yet it has a campaign, but the campaign is a whole bunch of mini campaigns that are like 3 sessions, which is super nice, and I love that. I wish more formats would do that. Solomon Kane kind of does that for a little bit, and I love that for that too, that I can like actually get through a story instead of this like huge 100-hour kind of thing, or all these disconnected scenarios that don't form a story. No, this actually like legit does, and it's really cool that it does that. It also has a very unique card system where you have to kind of decide how to use the cards that you have in a way that I haven't really seen done in other dungeon crawls at all. You can also like, it's like feudal Japan, and you can like get into a mech and then run it through larva. Like, it's a wild game, right? So there's that too. I guess I would probably say Oko Chronicles is actually one I quite enjoy. That being said, again, Cult of the New, I've been playing Chronicles of Druidgar Apocalypse, and I love the cube system in that game. I really do. It's reminiscent a little bit of Conan, which I absolutely adore, though I would call it a dungeon crawl. Though maybe it is. I don't know. You tell me. I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot. But it is definitely like mechanic like that. I love the card play, or I love the dice placement, or the cube placement, stuff like that. I tend to enjoy. All right, let's see here. Where are we at? I need to start like highlighting stuff here. Ragnarok's fantastic. I don't know why you're saying that though. I met Board Game Co. yesterday. They are so nice. Board Game Co. is pretty cool. I love talking with Alex. Let's see. Can you do a shout out to you just want me to say the name, Pierre, you jerk. Chemical Drag is how I'm gonna say that. So there you go. I'm sure I made that terrible, but maybe he should have a real name. What would your adult version of an ice cream truck sell? And ice cream? Why does ice cream have to be for kids? It would sell ice cream. That sounds awesome. And what song would it play? I don't know, probably some like heavy metal stuff or something. You guys know me. Something crazy, or maybe like J-pop anime music or something. Isn't that like the that'd get people to be like, "What the heck's going on there?" Oh, I'm thinking ice cream now. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Primal shipping prices? I kind of addressed that, Brian, at the beginning. I haven't looked into it, but I do know that they made the miniatures larger by several degrees, and I think that had something to do with it. I also think that perhaps they planned on trying to subsidize more than they ended up doing. I'm not sure, but I know they spent a lot of money on those minis going through the rounds. I definitely kept it going probably longer than they would have normally, because they were pretty happy with it before. I'm like, we can do better, and they're like, all right, let's do better, which is cool. But any work comes at a cost, right? So it could have been something like that, and they're also new, right? And so their estimates could have just been off. And I think a lot of companies subsidize. They don't advertise it. They don't, because I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is. Also, not all companies get the same deal from the same companies. It's amazing how this industry runs on who you know and who you are. And so some new guy with a one-time game and stuff like that, and you're not going to get the best shipping deals, even if you're using the same companies. There's a lot of ways you can save money shipping too, right? So like in Shadowborn, they were talking about when they did Oathsworn, that they changed like the hub location because it better matched the zoning of the like continents based off their backers. So if most of their backers were East Coast versus West Coast, they might push in the hub a little bit, and then it's actually cheaper because then the last mile is less because it goes on like these like zones, right? And you want to be like a lower zone, like zone 1 cheaper than zone 7, stuff like that. So there's some of that obviously as well at play that you can just kind of be smart. I was talking with SFG, and one of the things they were talking about, and I don't know what Ludus Meta Studio did, but with SFG, they don't use game fulfillment companies. They use like normal fulfillment companies that aren't game specific, because once you get any kind of specific, like game specific, it becomes very expensive. Kind of like when a lot of us were first starting to store our miniature paintings, they would have companies just for this holds a Citadel and this holds a Vallejo and stuff like that. And you're like, or you can just get nail polish holders. They hold the same thing, but because they're not meant for board games, way cheaper, right? So there's all sorts of things you can do. You can shop around for 3PLs. You could get a 3PL if you don't have one, or maybe if you do have one, maybe you're paying too much. There's a ton you can do around shipping, and if you're new to it, you're just not going to do as well. Pretty much guaranteed. So I think some of it's that too, but again, I haven't looked into it specifically. What are your favorite ranges of board game tabletop minis apart from GW and KDM? Oh, I mean, Gandalf, you know I am all about Freebooter's Fate right now. I love Freebooter Fate minis are just amazing. Infinity minis I really enjoy too, though both of them use metal, and I hate dealing with I hate super glue. I don't like dealing with it. I just want to melt my plastic together and call it good. So like that part of it sucks, but I love the miniature ranges there. I think those are fantastic. Then of course the collectible ones, right? Like the Senko Kushin minis that came out were amazing, or a Celestial, right? You guys know I nerd out over that. So there's a lot of those. I love minis, probably too much. Okay, Board Gamer said, "Hey bud, love your videos and insight into board gaming. You and Alex are all I watch." Well, thank you, I appreciate it. I mean, don't feel like you only have to watch us, but if you're getting what you need from his channel, which does a ton, it is amazing. That guy's work ethic is something to try and achieve someday. But if both of us are kind of helping you out in this space, I think that's awesome. I also love that Board Game Co's like a thing now. Like when I was first starting this out with like Hate, it was like mostly just me, and that's not what an industry needs. They don't just need me trying to cover it, right? So the industry and the coverage of it have grown so much, and so many more people are doing it. So many more voices are in there for you guys to kind of pick from and get more from. It's awesome. I love it. I think it's great. It's truly great. So thank you. I appreciate it. Is there another crossover video with Game Brigade in the near future again? You guys got the magic going. Yeah, it's a timing thing, right? I mean, he's tried to call me a few times, and I'm always typically like at work, like in a meeting or whatever. Again, I do a day job on top of this, so typically I'm not done with that until like 7 p.m. And it's a salary job, so it can suck hours wise. So then I have dinner. And so then I also have a family of 6, so I try to spend some time with them. Sometimes it's playing a board game, not always so. And so then at around 9 p.m. I can start doing this or whatever. And so like I get behind on my messages, stuff like that. And so actually planning any collaboration, because I wasn't sure if you were going to say Board Game Co. or Game Brigade. Those are the two I've even ever done it with, and this is why, right? It's really hard for me to get the time to be able to do it. And kind of do it properly and set it up and make sure it's a good fit. So yeah, I would love to start doing more collaborations just entirely, but it's kind of difficult with the timing thing for me. And if anybody's tried to communicate to me directly, they can know how difficult it is to actually communicate with me directly, and I apologize for that. Elo said they just got into Kickstarter board gaming. Well, welcome. It's actually a great experience. Is there anything you would recommend to watch out for? Keep in mind, yes, one lesson I learned early on, and I don't know what your situation is here, but for me, I like more board games than my main gaming group, read my family, will play. In other words, like once you distill everybody's likes and tastes down, there's kind of this like, because, I like that, but then I don't. Well, then we're not going to pick it, right? Or it's not as often. Pick games, back games that you think your group will play. Now, if you play solo, then whatever, right? Versus, just something that looks good to you. because those can often be, at least in my case, they were very different things. There are a lot of games that I think look cool, that I think are awesome, but I struggle to get it played because my main gaming group doesn't like it as much. So keep that in mind. The only other thing is when you're first starting out, often you don't know what you don't know, right? So like, oh, that game looks cool, and then it turns out, oh, I hate that. The key to that is realizing why you do. Do you hate it because, oh, I don't like how random it is, or I don't like how much the upkeep was? It turns out that's a pain point for me, or I don't like long player turns. Just try and think about what didn't work for a game as you kind of navigate that. You're going to have some duds where you get a back game, you're like, yeah, I thought that would have been good, and it wasn't. But as long as you realize why you don't think you did, you can look for that in the future. And that'll be personal for you, just like it was personal for me on like the things I like. Like, I don't care about finickiness. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like upkeeping little tokens or whatever. And I'm like, it's just not something that bothers me. But yet, long player turns, I just gotta sit here, just go. Like, I hate it, right? So I can look for that, and the same with you. But yeah, welcome to it. It's an amazing way to get some truly unique games you'll never get anywhere else. Have you smuggled any more Kinder Eggs? Lord, no. In fact, I have not bought another Kinder Egg here. Here in America, they actually, like, if you open up the white part, there's two, it's like a school lunch tray or a prison tray, right? Where like you have the separation, the toy and candy, because you can't put them inside. That's dangerous. Come on, you guys are like gonna have issues with your kids or something. Okay, let's see. Where am I? Hope you guys are having fun. I love this. Another Gen Con, another Essen, or something new next year. I think there's already plans for Essen. I do plan on going to Gen Con as well. I would love to add some more. They might be involved as stretch goals in my fundraiser coming up here soon. Obviously, they cost money, and especially to be efficient time-wise, it means I'm flying in. Versus driving like I did the first time at Gen Con. I missed the whole first day and also spent like 3 days on the road and had to take that much more time off work, and all that sucked. This year was a little bit less because I took some time to move into this house, and kind of my son's been having some issues. I've been dealing with a lot of that too. So, but next year I do plan on attending more. So yeah, I would love that. But at least Essen, probably Gen Con as well, for almost a guarantee. The other ones I hope so as well though too. Okay, let's see. What do you think of game IPs in board game space? I am personally really excited for Heroes of Might and Magic 3, but Witcher Old World, for me, didn't live up to expectations. IP like, what would that would... I cannot read that. IP like that would deserve. Well, IP games are interesting. I think in the board game space, they actually tend to end up better than a lot of our thoughts on it when it comes to like old school style ones, both in video games and in board games, where you get these like cheap adaptations that almost seem like the Disney VHS release, straight to VHS, if you remember those, right? The Lion King 1.5s. So like a lot of times they were like that. And to an extent they still can be. But in my opinion, if you have a game that really does capture the IP in a sufficient way, it can elevate a good game to great, and it can elevate a great game to favorite. Think about all the people that really liked Battlestar Galactica, right? Now, sure, there's some nice, play with like the Cylons, right? And, who's the Cylon there and stuff like that. But you could have made that game without it, technically. I mean, you can make any game without the IP. It is possible. Would it have been as enjoyed? I don't think so. I honestly don't. I think it elevates it, right? I love Star Wars Rebellion. You could build Star Wars Rebellion and just call it Rebellion or something like that, and some generic rebel group against some overarching empire. It may not even be space-based. Maybe they're all like locations on a single world, right? Oh, this is a swampland, and it's all fantasy. You could do that. It's possible. I wouldn't like it as much. There's something about capturing Chewbacca now that he's a Jedi and watching him as they blow up Kashyyyk on the Death Star that you just can't beat if you don't have the IP. A love of the actual IP can enhance a game so much. It really can. I think it's awesome. If you love the IP, you can do that. And like, we're all nerds. Why do you think we have a Heroes of Might and Magic 3 board game? Because we're all freaking nerds here, right? And so we like these like old style games that would never see the light of day in like a video game right now. Like they're not gonna, or some other adaptation, right? There's not gonna be a Heroes of Might and Magic 3 the movie, right? But there is the board game, and it's this huge bombastic thing from a big company, and you can love it. And I think that's awesome. If it helps you enjoy your IP, favorite IP from one way or another, by all means. Would Marvel Champions be the same without? I mean, it's not a necessarily unique format, right? But it's got Marvel. I can play as Wolverine and Spider-Man. Heck yeah, let's do that, right? Like it's great. I love it. I think it's awesome. And as somebody who likes a whole bunch of nerdy IPs, I love seeing it. I loved seeing Heroes of Might and Magic 3, right? I like seeing Witcher stuff. Whether it hits the mark or not, that can be kind of a bummer, of course, right? That's the kind of the hard part, right? It's like Horizon, the first one. That's why I didn't necessarily like that. I felt Horizon has a very strong story, but I think the open world stuff is kind of like blah. And so when you're doing a whole lot of blah stuff, whatever. So like anyway, it's great. I like it. Found your Mythic Games video, the latest one. I don't even know which one is the latest one, and saw that I did get the contribution mail. I'm supposed to pay another $210. This is insane. Got pretty much all in, yet still more money is needed. Yeah, they spent it. So, I've thought about making this video, and like literally, I haven't even put it down on my Trello board because I have a debate in my head here. On the one hand, I think it's great to celebrate the industry. I think it's wonderful to show up and like do certain stuff. But at the same time, I think a lot of board game spending is a waste of money. Going to like Essen or Gen Con, for instance, there are some really cool booths. There are definitely companies there that are spending money and not getting it in return, right? That it's like, that's just not a good investment. Maybe you shouldn't be spending that many thousands of dollars going here from abroad and then like spending all this money and doing all this stuff. Like if you're in the same spot where you're having to do, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, you can be more financially responsible perhaps and not quite go to that level. I mean, there's like I said, there's a lot of parties, there's a lot of eating out, right? There's a lot of flights and hotels and booth space and hired help and all. I mean, there's so much money that goes into this stuff. Or even like YouTube coverage, right? Like people will pay for a service that's just like crap. It's like, oh hey, we gotta make this game, and so we're gonna send it to all these reviewers, and we're gonna pay them like good money for it. Which, I mean, whatever, it's on them. But I'm just more concerned about getting a return on investment on that. And it's like, I don't know if you're getting your money's worth. I had an interesting conversation with I think it was Brendan from Open Owl Games, and what we were talking about even like my review of Stone Saga, right? And he's like, I had like 12 reviewers, do that. Like, for the most part, you guys are all watching the same channels. Like, you're just preaching to the same people over and over again. Like how much are you actually reaching? What are the added sales to make that prototype, to send it out and have 12 people review it versus 2? I don't know. So I think there's a lot of money spent that could be better spent elsewhere, I think. And I think that's kind of part of it. They paid their employees, they paid for their workspace, they paid for their events, they paid for coverage, they paid for all sorts of stuff, and now they need $210 more from you. And that's not for shipping, by the way. I mean, I've kind of said this a few times, right? That's to keep the company afloat. That's so Mythic Games can keep paying it what employees it does have, or keep paying its space that it does have, and kind of keep the lights on. You're funding the company more than the shipment of your game. That's why it's a contribution. It's not shipping. I'm going to buy Horizon Zero Dawn games on SFG. Is it safe? Will the games come in? What is your experience? Well, okay, so that's a very like I'm like lord over these things. I personally think backing from SFG is safe. I honestly do. I think they have one of the important things I look for is that not all your eggs are in one basket. A lot of companies used to be Kickstarter only, right? Crowdfunding only. But now they do other stuff, right? From consulting, right, to publishing, to retail, to all sorts of things, right? contract work for your some of your employees. There's all sorts of ways to keep cash flow coming in besides just we need another campaign. And SFG is honestly at that, right? They do a lot of publishing for other games. Like on behalf of other games as a service, like they get paid for it. They do have retail as well, so that helps as well. So I like seeing, and they actually have investors too, right? So like there's several different forms of income that they can have besides just like spam launching campaigns until the kingdom come, and they are delivering more. So I'm happy for that. Again, we'll see, but I would not. I would be fine giving them money. And so that's kind of what I would say to you. Now, does it mean that I know the future? No. And if there's another video I'll that needs to be made, I'll make it and be like, yeah, no, this was all scam. This was crap. They lied to us all or whatever, who knows? I don't, I can just kind of share what information I have and share my opinions. My opinion, I think SFG is kind of okay. I think they're charging a higher price for their games, and I think I like seeing that more. Again, going to that safe thing more than a deal. I'd rather for sure get my game and pay a little bit more than get a good deal and maybe not get my game at all, which is a bad deal. Okay, it's the king. Hello, Lucky. YouTube changed my name to Lucky6666 from Lucky. I still see it as Lucky Space 666, so I think that's okay. So I'm happy with it. You're still branded with the Antichrist or the devil or something like that. How do you know if you reached critical mass with unopened and unplayed games? Normally your wife says something. I'm not gonna lie. I got to that point in our old house. Before we got this kind of bigger game room, because we grew a lot. We moved into that house with a single 2x4 Calyx cube, and I put a whole bunch of nerd statues in there because I only filled up 3 cubes. That's where we moved in. When we moved out, it was so bad that I was asking if I could start putting new shelving in to rooms outside the little office game room that we had, and was told no. And that was kind of a good hint, like, okay, yeah, no, that's that needs to go. Nowadays, I kind of cull through stuff, but often it's when you start inflating outside of your intended storage space. That's kind of what I found out. And honestly, I think going through and culling games, I don't know why we call it culling. I guess it's fun. I don't know. I don't hear that term used for, like, I don't cull my garage. I just have a garage sale anyway. I think it's good to go through that, even if you just donate it or throw it up on Facebook Marketplace or whatever, or give it to the funder that is possible. I know some of you do that. Thank you for that. But I think it's good because then you start looking at your games more critically, right? You're like, when was the last time I did play this game? And you take it off and you realize all the dust on it. You're like, dear Lord, do I need this on my shelf? Yes, and you put it back on, right? That's often the case. But sometimes you're going to say, you know what? No, I don't. I haven't played that in forever, and I would play the better version of that. This game does it better now. I didn't even have that at the time, but now that it's years later, there's better stuff out there, right? You can also go through that. It helps you kind of look at your stuff in a critical way, and in my opinion, it helps. So you should almost have like a throughput, right? So you get games in and you put them out, right? Kind of like launching Kickstarters, right? Same kind of thing. But yeah, for me, it was definitely when I ended up asking if I could add shelving and was told no. That was for me like okay, yeah, I need to not do this. Oh man, the scroll on this is brutal. That hurts. I wonder if over here would be a little bit easier. Let me try this one. I'll try this. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see. What do you... Okay, IP games. We got that. I committed to buying games for 1 year. Okay. 5 games open. We'll enjoy over the next 15 years. Yeah, especially with some of these campaigns, right? Will you be getting a copy to review and unbox of Primal before the rest of us backers? The shipping controversy hasn't dampened my excitement. I don't know. I'm really bad at asking for that. And so, like, when I covered, like, the Jesse stuff, one of the things because, again, I try not to look at other people, right? I try to just, like, focus on my own stuff, right? Unless, like, of course, it affects the industry, and I think the Jesse thing certainly did. But it's amazing how much I suck compared to others when it comes to selling myself, right? When it comes to asking for things. I don't even ask for review copies from people, typically. I just did, I think... Recently, there was a thing where it's like, sign up to get your copy. And I'm like, well, I'll put mine in my email and just be like, hey, you guys know me or whatever. So Like, I just did it, and I think that was probably the only time I did that this year. Like, literally, I don't ask. Either they come to and ask for it or whatever, but I don't just go out there and ask for stuff. So even like when I do a review, I don't ask for payment. I don't ask for a free copy. I don't ask. So eventually, we'll sometimes I'll get to the point where it's like, hey, you guys are delivering. Like, are you sending an early copy? Because I'm trying to schedule out a video. I'm like, do I need to like pencil in a video here? I don't know. I sometimes will do that now, but even then, it's kind of rare. I've not asked them about any of that. I have no idea. You might remember, because it ends up where sometimes I'll buy a game and then they send me a copy. Remember the Hammer's Darkest Dungeon? I had no idea it was good. I backed the game, but they sent me an early copy, and so then I was able to give it out to the community. So I was happy with that. But don't know. I should probably ask them if I am or not. It'd be nice just so I could kind of see like I said, I have the minis, but again, I'm behind on that. So anyway, not sure. KO should do a guest appearance on Trapped Under Plastic. I would really enjoy these three going off on minis. That would be very enjoyable, especially because I feel like I have a little bit of a, like, they have a different experience than I do, especially with the level of painting and kit bashing and stuff they do. But then I do come from more of the premium side board games. Like, I just saw, like, Miniac recently did a video on, like, you know, our GW minis, like, the best or whatever. And there were several board games that I don't think he owns that I was like, what about that? What about that? What about this? You know, so we kind of come in at different angles, right? Which is kind of cool. Yeah, that'd be fun. Like I said, I've watched Miniac since like forever, a long time. But they're way bigger than me. I'm small game here. Feels like I have hordes of stuff to bring with me to the afterlife. Now that's true. That's very true. What are your thoughts on if Hell will actually ever be finished, let alone produced at this point? I'm not counting on it. I mean, it might. I don't know. But if so, you're going to be charged like the $210 or whatever. You're gonna still fund Mythic Games. Like they may as well launch other Kickstarters, right? It's literally just like here's our chance to get more inflow, right? It's just the cash inflow is all it is there. They've sold off their IP that they can. They've done everything else they can. They can't go to retail apparently. Nobody's gonna offer them any consulting things. The only thing left they are to do is whatever industry they have, charge them more. We actually were just talking about this with Patreon, with like YouTube stuff. What companies tend to do is they grow their market share as much as possible. Netflix does this, right? And that's why you're seeing like ads or ad blocking and all that kind of stuff, right? And once you can't do that anymore as a business that needs to continue to grow or get money in, then what you do is you start cannibalizing your own audience. In other words, hey, we have this market. We can't really gain any more now. How can we get more money? How can we milk these guys even more, the people we do have? And that's where Mythic Games is doing right now. So they're just, but the problem is that slowly dwindles lower and lower and lower as more and more people drop off, right? So eventually it will run out. Will it run out in time? I don't know, honestly. I mean, I'm not sure. I backed Hell because I'm an idiot. But I mean, again, I didn't lie to you guys either. I was putting my money in there too. They have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of my dollars, and it kind of sucks. But I guess lesson learned. Hell, though, I'm not so sure. It's their own IP, and I think they're under a lot more contractual obligation with the stuff like Rise of Necromancers, like Monster Apocalypse, the stuff that is with other companies, right? So I think that's kind of their focus right now. And Hell was a really good deal, which is why I backed it. But again, I would rather have backed for safe things instead of a deal at this point. You hate long player turns but love 40k. Do it at text and oxymoron. No, because I'm involved in the other turns. It's not like, I mean, like, movement doesn't take that long, and then they're like shooting at me and stuff, and often I'm like talking and whatever. 2-player games might actually also be an exception for that. For a lot of 2-player skirmish games where we're going against each other, that's a big deal, right? Because I'm still thinking about how I can counter you. I'm still, doing the whole overhead table talk, trash talk, taunt, try and get them to do something else. Like, I'm still very involved. If you've played Warhammer with me, I think you would know I'm talking the whole time. We're having a good time together, whether it's my turn or not. And of course, I have to roll, to defend and save and all that. And you moved here. Hold on, wait. I'm gonna Overwatch and do all your stuff. My turn never ends, right? And so that's a good clarification. I think in co-ops where I'm just waiting for my turn, and sometimes a turn is just to like move a little bit and be like, all right, that's my turn. I healed you. Go again. Like that I don't like. Skirmish games tend not to be like that. Warhammer, you're doing enough stuff off your turn that I'm fine with that. The good clarification, though. Good clarification. Good advice if you want to play. If you want to play, I like looking at stuff I wanted on the shelf. Though some alternate future I can imagine each. Oh yeah, I mean that's the hard part, right? Is making that call and not. I tend to be kind of good at that. Even at work, I'm a very kind of like, all right, let's do it. Like, I'd rather just make a decision than discuss it for forever kind of thing, right? It's like, let's discuss a little bit. Okay, now let's go, right? It's kind of my thing. So I tend to be okay with kind of making those kind of snap judgment calls. Not everybody is as okay with that, especially when it comes to collecting, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we collect a lot of these games. Order Mythic Battle Pantheon or Ragnarok and Arena the Contest per your recommendations. Thanks for your thoroughness. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed those. Those are some of my most favorite. I'm surprised I didn't. Well, I guess that's kind of telling if I didn't think that with like Daenerys on favorite dungeon crawls earlier. I think a lot of games, and this is the hard part, especially with subsequent things, right? And this is something I'm going to be talking about with Chronicles of Drunagar Apocalypse too, is like a game can be great. And then you can be like, what would be great is if you just added this, 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 and this. And that's what I said with like Arena. I was like, oh, if you could just add that, right? And so then they add all that. But all that comes often with a lot of stuff, especially with second Kickstarters. And then it's like the set. I mean, you guys saw how many characters I spent literally like 40 minutes getting all of those characters out and putting them out there and stuff like that. If you wanted to start a brand new thing of Daenerys and you wanted to do that so everybody could just pick their stuff, it takes forever. It's like, oh my gosh, there's just so much at this point. That we talked about nitpicks, right? Some people are finicky, or AP or whatever they like or don't like or triggered. For me, it's setup. If a game takes a long time to set up, it tends to hit the shelf and stay there. I don't like spending the hour and a half before playing a game to set it all up. At that point, I'm just tired of it already. And now we haven't even started playing. And then I got to put it all back. And that's even harder because I have to figure out what into what box and So that can be kind of an issue. That being said, and we'll see how Ragnarok is, but I have like zero issue getting out Mythic Battles Pantheon, setting it all and be like, all right, let's play. I'll get all of the cards out and we'll build teams and stuff. I love it. But I have a very soft spot for skirmish games. I like my mind versus your mind, my strategy versus your strategy, like that sort of thing. I really like. And it's got a cool little combat system with the lowering of health and stuff like that too. Okay, any news on Primal? You guys in your Primal, I need to do that unboxing so at least see that. No real news. I've answered that kind of a few times. Did the bosses get a second size increase? Yes, some of them did. So they did get increased even further. And I want to say like by like 30%. Like they're larger than they were. So I don't think I could compare anymore because I did send out the old minis. So I can't just do like a direct comparison, but I mean, like that turtle I know has grown and it's awesome for sure. But I guarantee that added to the price. BSG has been renamed with different themes. Dark Moon, Arkham, still enjoy BSG the most. Mechanics, yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing about themes, right? Is you can adjust it. Any good person I think can do that. Board Game Officer, you can be more financially smarter. Why do I feel personally attacked? I mean, you've seen the crap I buy, man. I think I should charge back all of Mythic Games. I'm an idiot. I use a debit card, so I should have been buying these on credit the whole time, I guess. Yeah, chargeback often can do that because that's up to your bank. Often, what your bank will do is give you the money, and then they go hound them for it, and they don't always get it in return. Can you give some insight into your board game playing groups? Do you have one specific for Chaos Prototypes? Do you have some? Oh, okay, this is a great question. Do you play regularly, vary a lot of players? So I'm going to separate that into two things, doing reviews and then just playing games. For just playing games, my most common partner in playing a game is my wife, followed by my oldest son. They're definitely the biggest gamers. My older daughter will join in sometimes depending on the game. My younger daughter always wants to join in, but can't always like very efficiently, or we don't want her to depending on the theme of the game and stuff like that. So, or because we'll enjoy it a little bit less sometimes. It just depends. You know how kids are. So if a game works in those conditions, in other words, 2 and 3 player are probably my most common, then followed by 4 player and then others. But my buddy will also come over sometimes, and we'll play board games, we'll play Warhammer, we'll do all sorts of stuff. So we've done that before. We go in spurts, so sometimes we'll do it a whole lot, and then sometimes we won't do it at all. Sometimes we'll do it, but not a whole lot. It just kind of depends. I've been doing this enough years. It just kind of it ebbs and flows, right? So that's probably most common, and I think it's like if you have somebody that games at home, you're just going to be able to do it more often. Back games that work for that, because you're going to get more out of it, right? If you can play the game 2-player, and you have somebody else at your home that'll play very often, focus on those. Have a few for the board game night, but you don't, like, if you don't do it very often, you don't need 50 options for it if you don't even do it 50 times a year, right? I mean, you really don't. For specific genres, so let's talk a little, in KS Prototypes, let's talk about reviews for a little bit. This is kind of interesting. This is another thing where I try not to compare myself to others because everybody else does it different. Alex and I have talked about it a little bit. I've talked with Alex probably more offline than like any other creator. We talk actually a fair bit about our different methodologies, stuff like that. And in fact, I even did a Who's the Better Reviewer. I did that whole video you could watch where we talk about the differences in how we review. And some things are the same, some things are not. It depends on the game, first of all. It also depends on the prototype. Again, not all prototypes play as smoothly as you would like, and so not everybody's up for that, right? I used to try and force prototypes onto the whole gaming group. Not a good idea, because that's a good way to ruin the experience. In fact, they would eventually be like, yeah, let's not play a prototype, please. Let's play a real game. I'm like, but I gotta play this for a review. Let's do it. It depends. Like I said, so there are some prototypes where there's really only one session in it. And like that's what you get, right? So you can play through that a few times. Maybe it depends on, maybe you saw everything you did, and you know what? I feel confident. I play until I feel confident, especially because I am a little bit more critical sometimes on some things, and I want to make sure that when I do that, I'm not like speaking out of ignorance. So a lot of it's clarification, which I've been told by a few companies that like I'm the only one that has done that for them, kind of thing. And it's like, well, there's no way they must have just winged it or not played it or something, because like this is ambiguous. Like, how do you deal with this? And then they'll clarify it. Sometimes it's just me though. I just want to make sure I'm playing right when doing a review specifically, right? I don't want to make a mistake. I've done that in the past. It's not good. So there's that. But I do try to do different player counts for games if I can. I do tend to avoid solo, but I've been trying to do that even more often too. Because so many of you are in different circumstances, right? Some of you have 2 people, some of you have 5 people, some of you have more. Obviously, the higher it goes, the harder it is. Obviously, the lower it is, the easier it is. I can do 1, 2, and 3 super easy, obviously, for instance, right? Once I do 4, I can do that pretty good. Once you get to 5, that's a little bit harder for me to get everybody together to be able to do it, especially in time for a review. So it depends, but sometimes it's like, you played it with 3, you can see how it's going to play with 5, right? Like you can see the issues. If you've been doing this enough, if you're critical enough, if you know what you're kind of looking at, I think any good reviewer could be able to tell the difference. You don't need to play 5 to know, hey, if 3 was already kind of slow, you can extrapolate what's going to happen at 5, right? Like there's that sort of thing, right? So some of that just comes with experience of doing something so much, right? Like critiquing a game that not everybody's doing. A lot of people just try and play it. One key thing I do, and I'll note this, I know I've noted in other videos too, is the first time I play a game, I don't take any notes. I just go in to enjoy the game and have a lot of fun. Afterwards, I might have a discussion with the table and see what they think and stuff like that. I might note some things. And then on subsequent plays, often I'll note things as I play it. You know, kind of like watching the movie with like, but not the first time. I feel that's one of the biggest issues that a lot of reviewers in general, not just board games, like just like movie critics, like everything, all reviewers do, car reviews, is they go into it trying to review it. And the other person buying the car is going into it to enjoy the car. And if they're going into it, they're obviously already liking the style, right? If you say the style's ugly, well, that doesn't help anybody that's looking at it like, oh, do I want that or not? If they thought the style was bad, they wouldn't even be there, right? So I don't try to critique like the theme and stuff like that too much. It's like, if you're in it, you're in it, right? So like, it's kind of useless to people that wouldn't be interested anyway, right? Like, who are you reviewing it for? So I try to keep the reviewers in mind, but I also try to simulate that experience of just getting a game and enjoying it, right? And I like these board games, and the cult of the new happens, and so it's kind of easy to do, right? So the first game session, I just go in with whoever can play, let's have some fun and do that. The only other thing I'll mention real quick is intended play. So, for instance, Star Wars Rebellion can be played by 4 players, 3 players, or 2 players. It is only meant for 2 players and should only be played by 2 players. You can do 3 and 4, but it shouldn't really be doing that. A lot of companies do this with solo modes, right? It's like, you can play solo. It's like, can you? I mean, is it the same game? No, you're playing like a subset of the game at that point, right? So there's that kind of stuff as well. I'll try to keep in mind. Thank you for going. So this was unplanned. I've had audio issues in the past when it comes to these live streams. So I have a Blue Yeti here that it's a Blue Yeti that I'm using right now, and nobody complains, so it must be better. But with my new camera angle right now, it'd have to be like farther back to be out of there. I probably need to actually mount on like an arm and be like a legit, YouTuber instead of just on the stand here. But whatever. You're welcome. You're welcome. Unintended. I woke up this morning. It was cold. There's snow outside. I put a jacket on. It happens to coordinate. That's kind of cool, actually. I dig that. What food do you crave most often? And Pierce saying, and burgers are good. Burgers, but I love burgers, but I have them all the time. I'm not necessarily craving them. What do I don't know if I have craves. The other day I was really craving pizza. I was like, that sounds good, a pizza. That sounds awesome. Let's get pizza. Not often. I think what I actually tend to enjoy, hot take here, guys. I don't actually like going out to eat as much. It can be fun, but it kind of messes with my insides a little bit. You know what I'm talking about? If I have too much, like good wholesome home cooked food, like a pot roast and mashed potatoes and some corn or something like that. I love that kind of food. That's why I love Thanksgiving so much, because that's the kind of food I like. It's the kind of food my wife cooks, and I love it. Like, give me a good roast more than going out for a burger any day. Done easily. Man, soul cook that sucker. Get it. Ooh, so good. Love it. Roast is probably one of my favorite things actually in the whole world. When you first start out, right, and you don't know things. I remember when we first got together and we're on our own and we're cooking like salmon and chicken curry and all this other, we don't know what we're doing or even what we like, but eventually we kind of settle on that's the kind of food we like good wholesome food like that. Any day, love it. Thinking about late pledging Ancient Blood, your thoughts on the game after all this time? Do you think it's a safe pledge? Well, okay, so again, I'm telling you, we're looking for safe nowadays. It's not necessarily even a good deal. I just want a good enough deal that's safe versus a steaming, super duper sale that never delivers or asks for a whole bunch of money after the fact, right? I think it's good. The company seems to be lean enough to be able to do its stuff. I just got notification for Neomorphosis to ship. They seem to be communicating more, so that's good. I personally did not end up buying Ancient Blood. I have $1 pledge that I still have not filled out. I've been thinking about it. After Neomorphosis, I might. But I might not, too. It just kind of depends. I like so for me, it's more of, what do I want out of a board game now? And Ancient Blood was a lot of fun, but it's kind of like the Massive Darkness 2 thing. And so once I kind of got rid of Massive Darkness 2, I kind of rethought my plans on backing Ancient Blood, because it's taking a very old school style Kickstarter board game, right? That first one that they had. And then it's moving that into kind of the new modern era with storytelling and stuff like that. And I'm kind of less keen on that now, just for whatever reason, currently PlayStation-wise. That's not something I'm necessarily looking for at this time. Neomorphosis might change that, but either way, with the delivery of Neomorphosis and them not spamming stuff to be able to pay for it and all that stuff, it seems like they're doing okay. They're just kind of slow, very indie. No, that going into communication won't be as ideal, stuff like that. But I don't see reason to think that you wouldn't get the game. Hill Game Found page was updated a few days ago. Really? That's kind of scary. I'll have to look into that. Thoughts and feelings of board games bringing in digital aspects and components, e.g. Return to Dark Tower, Mansion of Madness, etc. I think it's a cool idea, but I worry about compatibility in the future. Okay, so of course this is a whole thing. First statement's easy. I have no issue with anybody making any game that appeals to somebody other than me. They don't all have to be for me. Well, me personally, I tend not to like app-driven games as much. I have no problem with it. I mean, you guys do whatever you want, right? I mean, if people want that, give it for them, right? There's nothing wrong for people enjoying things that I wouldn't personally like. And there's nothing wrong with buying those too. In fact, it's kind of dangerous. I remember Eric Lang mentioning once, so it was a while ago, he was talking with Tom at the Dice Tower, and what he was saying is that they actually had a conversation often internally in the company on like, will Tom like this? In other words, will this game review well? Not necessarily be beloved by people or anything like that, but will it be a hit with reviewers specifically certain big reviewers? And then if the answer was yes, that game gets funded. That's dangerous, right? We don't want games made for me. We want games made for different people and all sorts of people. So just because I wouldn't like it and I would review something badly does not mean you shouldn't make it. Like we should not get to that point in the industry. That's a dangerous thing to do, I feel. So I'm glad we're not doing that. So I have no problem with it technically. As a software developer, as somebody who kind of knows a thing or two about programming and computer architecture and stuff like that, there is definitely a compatibility in the future issue. I know a lot of people point at like DOSBox. Okay, people don't point at DOSBox, but people point at old computer games. And like, oh, hey, you can still emulate those and stuff like that. But the amount of scale difference between the audience is so massive, it's laughable. There are millions of people that played that old video game and enjoyed it. Or old video games in general enough to build a platform that could support the very common thing that they all share in common, which was built for that console, whether it was DOS, whether it was the NES, whatever it is. A PlayStation 1, doesn't matter, versus every individual app for different people that are running on Android and iPhone that are also changing, and it can get really messy. And of course, there's server-side stuff, which you just can't really do. You can, technically there's like MMO emulators that, look at old footage and try and recreate, server sites. It gets messy, and there's just not enough people into this to really make it a certified thing. That being said, if a game only lasts 10 years, I'm not super bummed about that. But I still like the idea of, even if I don't care about it in 10 years, I can give it to somebody who will like it. You know what I'm saying? So like, even if I'm done with, I don't know, Rising Sun. Rising Sun isn't unsellable in 10 years because it doesn't work anymore. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of that. Plus, obviously, the issues of, I heard several people stopped playing Aeon Trespass Odyssey because they had like an issue with the app that like errored out or whatever, and their save was done there. That's not even a required app, but they happened to be saving it in there. And so when the app messed up, they're like, all right, I'm out. Like, I don't have another way to do that. I don't have it on paper. Though if you have paper, you could lose the paper. Catch a fire, flood, whatever, right? So like, you could lose the paper too. There's issues no matter what you do. But yeah, the online thing, the app thing tends to not be the case. That, and depending on your play group, I have certain members in my play group that if they have their phone out for the game, they're going to end up on Facebook or whatever, right? And so like, it's better just to have no phones there. My personal opinion on that, anyway. Okay. How's Primal's shipping situation again with the Primal? I will look into that. I promise. After this, like this weekend, I'll look into it. I'll see about the Primal stuff. Let's see. Code gets deprecated and stuff like that. Well, it's not even so much. Again, not to get into the technical parts of it, but Android, for instance, had a big thing where they increased security, and one of the things they did was change how you can save data as an app. And if you didn't update your app, if you didn't actively if you did that, like you saved it a certain way, you now had to make a code change to do it differently, or your app broke. And so any app that wasn't being maintained steadily broke. And that's just bound to happen. Like, it's going to happen. Like, there's going to be changes. Oh, now you have to use, like, OAuth, or now you have to do this or that. Or I don't know, I'm throwing out some terms here. But for those of you who get it, you guys already know. For those of you who don't, there's a lot of technical things in there. A lot of specific things that can say, hey, this is a security threat. You need to update. You can't do this anymore. And if there's not a programmer programming it doing that, it ain't getting updated and it breaks. It's just as simple as that. What's your favorite kid? No, I'm kidding. What's your kid's favorite game? I don't know. So my youngest likes any game she can play, really. She still really liked like Stuffed Fables. That was probably one of her favorite ones that she's done. She likes some of the little ones that Creative Game Studios is making with their kind of their sister company. They make these kind of really fun little kids games like Beaver Creek and stuff like that. She loves it. She loves games that make her laugh. For my son, he's the kind of like everything is awesome, right? He's definitely not a critic. As long as he's playing a game and he's playing it with me, he's happy. Like, and I know that sounds cheesy, but like again, very true, right? Like he just loves playing these games. He thinks they're all awesome, and he has a blast with them. So I'm glad with that. My wife's favorite's Conan. Just hands down Conan. There you go. Done. How many times do you play a game before putting a review? Again, it depends. It depends on whenever I'm comfortable enough speaking about my opinions specifically. Or I really want to cover something like, how does this, if they're selling it on the solo, how does it play solo? Or it's definitely intended for 2, I'll do that. So I'll always do what I feel is intended. But after that, it just depends. It depends. If I generally like the game, I don't see any issues. Again, I feel personally, not boasting or anything. It's just I've done this enough, right? When you do something a whole lot, you tend to get at least a little bit better at it. So you can kind of tell, hey, yeah, I'm okay saying this. I feel confident doing that. Whenever my confidence is there, it's there. So it can be really long, or it could be just a couple sessions. It could technically just be one for like a prototype. I've done it before. Now, often I mention that in the prototype review. I'm like, hey, this was a very trimmed down thing. There wasn't a whole lot there. Like I think in the Kingdoms Forlorn, I mentioned, I think there were two sessions or 3. It was something like that. It was a lot less than the prelude thing they did for Interest of Saucy. So I was sure to mention that, hey, this is a much more trimmed down look at this, or this doesn't even have this feature in it. So for a lot of the prototypes, sometimes you just can't test it because it's not even a thing yet, right? Or like, oh, this is the thing, but it's not in the prototype. It's like, well, okay then, right? But yeah, whenever I'm comfortable. So it varies wildly. The Chronicles of Drunagar, I've been playing like the tar out of that. So we're many sessions in on this one, and still on a review. I know it's late, but I'd rather get it right than like rush through it, if that makes sense. My Interest with Odyssey one was pretty late too, right? But again, you just try and do it enough. You're not doing a 300-hour campaign before a review. I mean, you can do whatever you want, I suppose. I don't know anybody that is. There might be a few, but then it's probably not for every game. It's just not, it's not feasible. No matter how many games you play, at some point, you're reviewing it after everybody already either bought it or didn't, in which case, what's the point? I talked about Primal already a few times. King, what are your thoughts on EU backers not paying VAT? The cost is spread to other backers. A VAT question. My feeling is that it's complicated. So one of the things about VAT, or about really anything like that, subsidized shipping, right? Same thing, flat rate shipping. Anytime you buy something from Chip Theory Games, you're helping ship somebody else's game out, unless you live in an expensive part. You're helping ship a game to Brazil or Canada or rest of world or whatever, right? Like that's how that works. And that's just kind of a general thing. Now, we can nitpick and kind of try and draw lines on like what is okay and what isn't okay to do that. But for the most part, the goal of companies, just in general, is to try as much as they can realistically. And in crowdfunding, it's super easy. So almost every crowdfunding thing, make it to where people are paying similar costs, regardless of taxes, regardless of import duties, regardless of tariffs, regardless of whatever kind of crazy stuff goes out there. Distance, that's the idea. That's the general goal most have. That way everybody's kind of paying an equal amount, and all the like fluff over top of it, outside of it, is just kind of divvied out. And you do that constantly. Most of the time they don't announce it. They don't say, oh, hey, this, when we ship to the US versus when we ship to Canada, these taxes come in, or we're charged this at the port of entry because it was made from China, or because it shipped from our headquarters in EU, or whatever it is, right? Like there's all this stuff that could be slightly different. And at the end of the day, especially with shipping, none of us are charged the actual amount, right? We're all put into zones, right? It might take me, to get to my house, and I'm the only one in Idaho that backed this game, versus the 12 people in California. But technically California is farther away, so even though they had to do a special truck just for me, I pay less because it's the same zone. It's such a complex thing that it tends to just even out. And by and large, for a large part, when it comes to something other than taxes, again, the VAT's a very stickler thing, right? Because then we think about what it pays for and what I'm bidding from and all this other kind of stuff, right? We generally think, like with shipping, that's fine, right? Chip theory games, shoot, yeah. Flat rate, shoot, yeah. Let's do that, right? Like all of these things that they do from that, it's you paying other people's shipping. It's you paying other people's import duties. It's you paying other people's whatever charges that they do, customs or whatever it is. It's all evened out and distributed across so that the people in the most expensive pay less and the people in the cheapest pay more. But it evens out, and we tend to like that just as human beings. You get that meme joke around like, oh, it's $70. No, it's $70 and $10 shipping. No, it's $70 and $10 shipping. No, it's $80 and free shipping. Yes, right? Like, it's just generally, we like that kind of smooth thing. We like feeling like we got something for free, and we don't like feeling that we paid for more. So when it's overtly known like that, when it's a very known thing, that tends to be the stickler. But at the end of the day, my personal opinion here, the moment you buy any of these games, you are paying for somebody else's something. Again, unless you live in one of the more super expensive places. There's subsidies, there's all sorts of stuff, there's taxes that are paid from the profits which you paid into, right? Anything the company pays, right? Their own taxes as a company, you helped pay for those, right? I mean, they're using your money, right? I mean, you paid into the bucket, and then that bucket paid for their taxes, paid for them to subsidize shipping, paid for them to send a replacement. You're helping pay for everybody's replacements. They got a dinged box and want a new game box, and they ship it. They used some of your money, a tiny little bit of it, along with everybody else's to do that. So at the end of the day, it's all bucket going into the company. The company pays what they pay out of it based on that. And if it gets people the game more, I'm kind of okay with it. It is, yeah, I mean, it's kind of iffy on a lot of that, right? I understand the stickler about VAT specifically, but I'm also trying to be realistic enough to know that while we are stickler on VAT, and I understand it, I have been too, it's just how these things work at scale. Probably been asked, but curious. If you say Primal, I swear, Mike. Mike Owens asks, probably been asked, but curious what your most looked forward to game in 2024 is. I'm personally most looking forward to the CTG Elder Scrolls game delivering. Okay. So are you talking about games delivering or games launching, right? So looking forward to game in 2024, I'm assuming is a delivery. So my hope, and this is something you probably guys didn't expect, because I don't know if anybody would hope this like I am. But technically, as I said before, Monolith has said, hey, we're going to only launch games that were like, farther along. And so I've talked with them a bit about the Egypt expansion from Mythic Battles, and they said that they're pretty far along on it, by the sounds of it, which is good. I would love to have it launch and deliver. No, I know that's probably not going to happen. I know that's probably not going to happen. But if Ragnarok's delivering like now, it'd be great to have it like, launch early in 2024 and deliver in 2024. That'd be freaking sweet. The reason I say this is because not only do I like the system, my wife's favorite theme is Egypt. She loves Egypt and Egyptian things. So to get a game that she likes in Egyptian would be awesome. In Egyptian, like it's like translated with an Egyptian theme, would be stellar. I'd be stoked for that, and I'd play the tar out of that. I think that'd be awesome. So I might tentatively do that. That being said, there's a lot out there, right? So I guess we'll find out. But that's what I'm looking forward to delivering, even if it's early 2025. Who is your biggest nemesis in competitive games? My wife. She just rolls better than I do. She's also really, really good at kind of strategies. Like I mentioned once, I don't know if I mentioned in the review. So we were playing Rise of Moloch. She does stuff that I always remember, like this stupid little crap, right? And she had to capture a person and get them off the map, right? And I had my guides there or whatever, and she eventually gets the person, right? And then starts building up to go this way. So I spawn guys in on this side. I'm gonna catch her. She's gonna run right into me. I got her, right? And then she plays this stupid freaking turn where she goes the other way, passes it off, and ends up to where now she's on the other side of the map, and I'm like, crap. And I chase her. I can't even get her. She just it was like a football game in slow motion, right? It was this fake pass that she did where she's like, nope, going that way. And it got me. So she does crap like that all the time. I hate it. And again, she's good at rolling. GM, I'm a little late. Well, welcome, Tim. Welcome, Tim. What's your most recent 3D print or most memorable 3D print? I will go get it. Enjoy the background again. Back. Okay. This is my most recent 3D print. That's probably way too bright. Hold on. I'm going to turn some lights off here. I'm going to get a little bit darker here. There you go. You can see just like that, probably a little bit better. So this is Jill from Resident Evil. This is from Nom Nom. Nom Nom Figures. So anyway, I think it turned out pretty cool. There is one mess up right here. But other than that, I think she turned out great. And that was my printing versus anything. I think she's like 180-ish millimeters. Or maybe you can see the detail like on the pants and the shirt and stuff like that. Really good. But we're big fans of Resident Evil here. So when my wife saw this, she's like, oh, we got to print that off because she wants to paint it. So that's her next painting project. But she's painting Cyber Odyssey right now, actually. She's painting one of the minis from there. I'll show it off later. Not this stream, but later on the channel. That's my latest print. It was a fun one. It was really cool. The harness was like flexible, and you like put it on her like a Barbie doll. I think it was wild. I was like, oh man, that's crazy. Pledging for something safe is why I only pledge for the repeatable companies that I'm confident will deliver, like Chip Theory, Awaken Realms. Yeah, as someone who's less than a year in the hobby, yeah, I cannot blame you. You'll have a good experience that way. Without spoilers, how far are you in Antrespass Odyssey, and how are you enjoying it? Well, I'll be honest, I haven't played it in a while. One of the problems with reviewing games, and honestly, something I've thought about not reviewing games for this. First of all, it's a lot of work. Is that you tend to have to just go to the next one, right? And I love helping people, and I'm glad that they're helpful, but it does tend to mean that you play games a little bit differently, and that you play like a game and then you got to move on, and you play a game and then move on. So every now and then I'll get like a game night in where we just play what we want to play, but it doesn't happen very often. As for the how far am I believe I am almost done with Cycle 1. The shipping price released on BackerKit really sparked complaints from mostly ROW regions. I was affected as well, as the shipping prices are outrageous. Yeah, ROW gets kind of the pooper all the time, right? I mean, it's just kind of a God only knows what's going on with that, except that I suspect that even when they charge, they're probably losing money on it. But if I'm assuming Tom Vassell is popular, his opinion is the same as others, so there's really targeting a very large audience. Yes and no. I mean, I think to an extent, if something doesn't review well, you can be worried that that's going to cost you, like potential people who would buy your game. Especially somebody with a large audience, right? Like if I come here and I say this game's crap, and you would normally target the audience that watches me, you might be a little concerned. I can kind of understand that. At the same time, I'll refer back to what Brendan from Games was talking about, where it's like, how much are you really getting from reviews anyway? Like people value them at different, but I think there is only a subset of people that truly are like, you reviewed this, I'm getting this because of that, or you didn't like that. For the most part, you guys are super smart. You guys know what you want, and you guys just need more information and maybe hear things contextualized. But then you can still form your own opinion on that. That's why I like you guys so much. You guys don't just blindly follow me, and I do appreciate that. I don't know if every channel is like that. Again, I tend to only focus on mine, but I know for mine, that's probably not the case. Okay, Lambust us for this game. Okay, there have been. So I do get that for like unboxings a lot. Like I've had people be like, man, when you got the pokey stick out or whatever, like I started sweating bullets. They're like, dude, I was worried. I'm like, oh crap. It's like the inspector coming in. So that can happen maybe with unboxings more than reviews, perhaps. What is your top 3 DC villains? Oh. I don't know if, I mean, of course Joker's up there, right? I mean, the Rogue Gallery for Batman's great, but the Rogue Gallery I think for Flash is really good too, and Superman has some great ones too, and the Green Lanterns have some great ones too, like Atrocitus is pretty cool, Sinestro pretty cool, like there's all these people that are like super duper neat. I was just reading the Darkest Night saga that Geoff wrote for Green Lanterns, and it's great. Often it might just be who I most recently like read about. So it's hard. I think it is actually kind of difficult to pick just three, and avoid again just Batman's Rogue Gallery, right? Which is great. I think the Rogue Gallery goes Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men. Oh, let's see. Then probably. Yeah, I don't know. Probably Green Lantern for me, and of course, it's like like I said, Flash is good. Avengers have some. I mean, like, there's so many. It's just I love comics, so that's really kind of a hard pick there. Let's see. You could use a tablet for a game app. Remove phones from the equation. Yes, I could. I could buy a tablet specifically for board games, but that seems dumb to me. I'd want it to be a non-crappy tablet, so it's probably about $1,000. And just because I get really frustrated with slow load times, stuff that doesn't get updated, especially for future apps, right? So I need the latest Android version or iOS or something like that. And I just don't like, I don't know, that expensive of a board game accessory for a few board games, I guess. I'd end up using it for other stuff because I don't want to use it. And it's like, hey, it's a nice tablet. In which case, then I just have a tablet. I have a whole bunch of games on it now or something like that. My kids use it all the time, and it's busted up or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. That's true. You could also have it to where like maybe I control it and cast it to like the TV. We do have a TV right here now. Maybe, yeah, you can maybe do that. Inserts for game storing and maybe cheap inserts. Okay, so cheapest insert you can buy is a 3D printer. I kid you not. Like get an FDM one, so the one where the print head moves and it's essentially building plastic on top of itself, right? And then you can print. You can go to Thingiverse and all sorts of sites, and you can get your own or design your own. They're pretty easy, right? It's just rectangles. 3D printed storage solution, and that's the cheapest way to do it by far because they're expensive. And often you can get quite a selection of them too, which is kind of nice. So definitely the cheapest. At that point, the 3D printer is probably less than like 2 storage things, and you can do that to the majority of your games. That is a legit thing. That I would highly recommend. I mean, it's not like this, right? It's not like the resin stuff. It's cheaper, and you would do it cheaper. Put the layer line high, and you don't have to be too fancy about it. So that's definitely the cheapest, I would say. The other thing, if you're really concerned, especially with, I think a lot of people want just spaces for like cards and minis and dice and stuff like that, is the pluck foam tray. So there's like foam that come with a whole bunch of squares, and you can essentially make the squares however big you need. So big enough for a specific mini or big enough to hold some cards or whatever, and you just put that in there. That being said, foam tends to take a lot of space, so you're going to get a lot of board lift there. So that's it for storage. That being said, for the most part, and maybe this is why I hate setup and stuff like that so much, I'm more interested in shelf space than like storage. I'm not a monster. I don't just like throw minis into a box, except for once ever. So obviously I'll keep them in their nice trays or whatever. But if I can like smash all the cards in there and stuff like that, often I will end up kind of doing that. It can take longer to store, perhaps, because I'm not separating all the tokens or whatever, or to set up, but storage is then less. But 3D print them for sure. Like seriously, it's not like it's not toxic or anything like that. You can get a decent enough 3D printer for like $200 these days, and then just download and print them. I kid you not, it's way cheaper to do, and you get to do it on demand. Or you could even like customize it and like, oh well, I know this is for this game, but this one tray works for this other game, or I really like how this has slots for all the minis or whatever, and it works for everything. Are you paying to build the size of a community that helps the game? But you are. Oh yeah, of course, yeah, that's pretty valuable. That's true. It's not just that. You're essentially paying into the company, and the company's doing what it can to sell more product, and that might involve paying some VAT. Is any game from Essence Spiel this year staying in your rotation? Well, so I mentioned like the kid games. So there's one I've already played with my daughter. I'm not going to say the name of it because I think they're changing it. But essentially, you saw all the little cards. It's these like cats and dogs. And what you do is it's kind of like tic-tac-toe. But instead of X's and circles, it's dogs and cats, hats, no hats, boots, no hats, gun or sword. And so you have to essentially connect one of those. And it's just more complex enough to where the kids really get into it, where it's like, okay, so I saw that these were all cats. I'm going to put a dog there, but oh no, he has a sword, so that makes it to where now you can connect the last one or whatever. And then they have a hard mode where it's just a picture that you have to go on. It doesn't give you the like icons on the bottom. Anyway, that's actually a pretty big hit. You can play it super easy. That's staying in there. The kids love it. They love stuff like that. The kids being my youngest, I suppose. I'm saying plural, but it's really just her. At this point, sadly, they're growing up. They're all teenagers now and moody. So that's there. I haven't played again the Bedville Chronicle. That one, or Carnival, sorry, that one came. I did play it at Essence Spiel, but I haven't played it again this time. So I'm not sure if it will or not. I really like the art in it, though, but I really suck at it. And so I don't know if I want to keep a game that I'm crap at. Maybe I'll get better at it. I'll probably give it a shot to see if I'm better at it or not. Let's see, I got a 40k mini, obviously that's coming. Though I haven't built it yet. If I'm building, it's been Gambler's Chest. Okay, Dungeoneers shopping was rough. And I haven't played the Dungeons of Doria yet either. Dungeoneers shopping was a rough one yesterday. Shipping, probably, I think is what that was. How many games do you think Mythic will get out before they finally fold? Honestly, I have no idea. Obviously, they did fine enough on this last one. The main thing is obviously the less money they get, the less they have to print, right? But there is a minimum print quantity too. That being said, their games are generally big enough to where they can get 1,000 people to pay for them, right? And a lot of their games, especially something like Monster Apocalypse that'll be next or whatever, is like, I'm not saying that'll be next, but like I think it'll be sooner than something like Anastyr. There's a different audience, right? So there's people there that didn't pay for now Darkest Dungeon and Sixth Siege, and so maybe they'll get it out. I don't know. We'll see. It's hard to say. I think there is a possibility that they get all their games out. That being said, they didn't deliver to everybody else, so it's not like it's like completed. They just give it to some people, which is not delivery, at least not full delivery. Thanks for answering the back question. You're very welcome. Heard that Retaliation is in a different scale than the first Nemesis games. Is this still true? The enemies are, yeah, because you'll essentially, first of all, you can like have them in halls now, and you can like attack multiple, like there's like hordes of them, right? So it's like, oh, you used to deal with one, deal with like 7 now, right? Like that's the thing. And so the aliens are smaller. A lot of them are, even like the adults and stuff like that are smaller scale. I believe the heroes are the same though. You used to do an STL roundup monthly or semi-monthly, and you seem to have stopped. Is there a reason? Yeah, I can only make so many videos, and those fall on the wayside. I want to. I actually, so like I said, I have a Trello board, having like a calendar view. And if you're on my Patreon or YouTube membership, you would have seen this when I post like, here's what's coming up. I'll list like 10 videos and be like, well, obviously I'm not going to get through 10 videos this week, right? But like some creators I know have said that they get burnt out or that they struggle to like figure out what they want to say. Like I've had creators even tell me that. That's like I got nothing to talk about or whatever. I don't know what to do. I've never had that problem. Part of it's I talk a lot, as you can tell. But I'm just passionate about this industry, and I'm gonna talk a lot. So like I've never been short on video content to make. I've been short on time, and so when push comes to shove, I try to do a video that will help the most people that I think, or help the industry the most that I think. In other words, the one that are most valuable. It's why I don't really do miniature painting videos anymore. They take longer to edit. I still like them. I still paint minis even. But they don't help as many people, right? I mean, like they'll help people, but not as many. And so if I can help, 7,000 people, or I can help 700 people, I'm going to try and help 7,000 people. Hopefully that makes sense. I mean, it's not ideal, and I wish I could just do everything I wanted to do. So in that Trello calendar view, I have an STL news video. Like I keep track of them and I do stuff like that. and I bump it week after week after week after week. I just bumped it yesterday, actually. I just went to the new, because now I'm on like December fully, right? So I went through December and I moved all the ones down that are like, oh, I'm not going to get to that yet. Just haven't gotten to it. Just need to do it. There's no reason other than that. I have no problem, having those videos there. And in fact, I would still like to expand it. The 3D printing area, I don't do any reviews on. And so it would be nice to kind of try and monetize that, like a lot of channels monetize the board game stuff, right? Because I don't, and I'm at a disadvantage for that. I make a lot less because of that. I see channels like, a third of my size getting paid to like show the same game off that I did, and it's like, what the heck, like obviously they're making, and that sponsor money is going to way outdo any ad money I get. The ad money is paltry, right? And so it's like, well, I made $20 doing that, but I guarantee they got paid like 200 plus at least, right? So they're making more money than I am, and they're getting like way less than everything, and it's just, I mean, it's fine. It's my choice to do that, right? But like, it would be nice to monetize something like that that's kind of adjacent, that I'm still passionate about and stuff like that, right? So I would like to do that, but if I'm not doing consistently, they're not going to pay for it anyway. So it's whatever. We'll find out. At the end of the day, I'm just happy I can help. Are you working with any companies or on upcoming campaigns that you can talk about? I'll be working with Nemesis Games again for an upcoming campaign of theirs. So I was in talks with them to do that. Other than that, I am also currently working with Creative Game Studios. You guys know that. And that's it as far as like actual like paid stuff. Other than that, I meet with companies all the time. Like I just met with SFG and we kind of talked through a few things. I met with Bantam World and we talked through that a little bit. I have conversations, email chains, and meetings for free with companies all the time, kind of because I'm an idiot, but also just because, I just want to help. And if I can help make a game better or help somebody avoid something or make an experience better for you guys, I'm all for it. Like, yeah, let's do that. That's why I do this whole channel thing, right? So, that's it for that. And again, part of that's just like, I don't ask. And so they have to like come to me and ask for it. And then I have to see their message within the first 3 months and then respond, right? And like that can be really hard. Plus, I can't take on too much because, again, of the time constraints, right? It can be a little difficult. I would like to help more. I definitely enjoy it. And I like when it's like a more legit thing where like, yeah, I'm actually putting in some hours into actually doing this. Just because I feel like I can help make a difference in some areas. Have you heard anything about the Final Fantasy remake board game? The last thing I saw was that it's due next year. That was at Essence Spiel. And it looks like a neat little card game. But no, other than that, no. And it's specifically the Final Fantasy VII remake game, which I think is what you're talking about. I would like to. I do have a small connection with Japanime Games or whatever, and so I think I might have an in with that. I don't know. I'm gonna ask them about it. It's Final Fantasy VII Remake is my daughter's favorite game. Probably behind that is Kingdom Hearts, but no, she really likes Final Fantasy VII Remake. She's played it like 7 times. she likes it a lot. It's a good game. I like it. So she's excited for that. It's for sale on the Square website. Yeah, it's supposed to deliver soon, I believe, but they haven't really shown off a whole lot. Like they're not. It's kind of weird how they like aren't advertising it so much. You should do a paint video on the Resident Evil 3D model you just printed. So it would be my wife, and I'm not sure she's comfortable with that because she feels like she's a bad painter. No, she paints better than I do. But yeah, that would be really cool, right? But yeah, and maybe she wants to start doing that. I don't know. I can ask her, of course. But no, that was for her. Like I said, she paints more than I do at this point. What's your favorite beer and pretzels game, and why is it Zombicide? Well, because it's a fun game. I like, so I think I tend to like games that are more beer than pretzel. Let me kind of explain. When I think of a beer and pretzel game, I think of a game that you're just, laughing and having a good time with people. In which case, Zombicide is a great one, right? It's not like overly like, stressful and hateful and stuff like that. Or it's strategic, but not like, it's not going to kill you with stress. It's a great one. It really is. If I was to say, like, what was probably the most fun I've had in a beer and pretzel game, and this probably isn't something most people would include, but I would include party games, right? Like, I think Super Fight, I have physically hurt from playing that game, from laughing too much. I tend to decline playing it because my throat goes out from shouting so much. But what Super Fight is do you remember, like, being, like, 8 years old, and you and your, like, buddy from the neighborhood are out in the street arguing, and you're shouting, "No, that didn't hit me," and he says, "Yes, it hit me." I was like, "Well, it doesn't matter because I have a force field," right? Like, that sort of stupid nerd arguing crap. Like, I love it. I love it, and so I have such a fun time playing that game. It's just ridiculous. So that's actually probably what I would put as the highest, assuming you can include party games in that. I think for a lot of part, that's what party games are trying to do, right? Are trying to give you that sense of, yeah, we're just having a good time, right? Like, we're not sitting here, in a library thinking on like a chess move in a Euro game somewhere, right? Like, we're just having a blast, right? We're killing zombies. We're arguing about, my narcoleptic superhero goat, or whatever kind of stupid junk Super Fight gives me. Let's see. Gaming Geek does STL print previews. You should do a collaboration. I will try and look into that. Thanks for the answer. We'll look into 3D printing answer. Yeah, no, seriously, just, get a decent, Neptune or something like that can print it, and then go ahead and look at the SELs first. Go to Thingiverse and type in, like, game storage and stuff like that. There's a few websites out there that can get that for you that people will, like, literally give away for free. They're like, hey, I designed this for myself, and here it is in case somebody else wants it. You're like, sweet, now I can store Twilight Imperium or whatever. It's awesome. Email Leprechaun, I'm hearing reports from PAX U that content creators are being rude to volunteers who are demoing games for them and making them feel uncomfortable. Have you heard of such things as well? And do you have a take? Maybe why? I have not heard that. I have not seen that. I wonder, I need to know specifics about what it means to be rude or uncomfortable, I guess. I think sometimes it can be uncomfortable for some people because it's a different situation. For instance, when I was going through Spiel, and I know I'm kind of different than others, of course, because I'm a little bit of a social butterfly, but a lot of what I'll do is just film something. Like, I'm just walking around, oh, that looks cool, I want to film it. That's the style of video I do, right? I always do, like, what's awesome, like, because, again, I'm like a kid in a candy store, and I think you guys can kind of share that. So I'll do this stuff where, like, oh, yeah, oh, that's cool, and oh, that's cool. And that sometimes it involves taking a quick picture or a video of something and then just walking away. I got other stuff to do. I'm actually off to meet with somebody or something like that. And the volunteer sometimes will be like, oh, hey, did you want to, do whatever? I personally just say, oh, no, I got to go or whatever. But, sometimes they'll try to talk to you or do something like that. And that's like, maybe a situation where the volunteer isn't used to that or isn't prepared for that some people may just want to, like, snap in and, like, do stuff and then go real quick, especially when it comes to, like, filming and stuff, right? When you're doing that versus just perusing like a normal person. And not everybody has, like, an agenda, like an itinerary, like, oh, I gotta get a meeting here, I gotta talk to this guy, I gotta get this game demo in. Some people are like that, but they're not normally, like, filming stuff. It could be that. Maybe that's the case, and maybe they felt it was rude that sometimes maybe people don't say anything and just walk away or whatever, or maybe they were going to, and the person didn't even realize. I mean, sometimes those conventions are sometimes so loud that maybe people try to talk to me and I didn't hear it. I don't know. But that's wild to think that, people would say that, like, people are being, like, rude or whatever. I wonder what that is. You said specifically who are demoing games for them. So in other words, they're, like, in there and they're trying to do I don't know what that would be. Yeah, I'm not sure. Except that there's, board games, and when you get into, like, the niche nerd culture, there's often some strong behaviors from certain people. Right, that you get certain kind of characteristics that tend to pop up within there. I don't know of any content creators that would do that necessarily, but it could be. I don't know. Maybe other content creators think they're all that. I tend to self-deprecate too much personally, so I have the opposite of that. But there can be people that are maybe socially awkward or a little bit different like that, or I'm not sure. Don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, if you guys could point me in the direction of that, I'd love to read up on that. Any advice on convincing your non-board game family gaming friends to play board games with you? Trying to convince my roommate to play more often with me. They casually do sometimes. If pick a better game for them. This is kind of what I talked about, where it's like what we like and what other people like can sometimes be very different. And I had the same problem. Like when I was backing games that I liked, that I thought were freaking awesome, and they kind of liked, but for the most part, like it wasn't like their jam. That's it. And I think the other thing is be okay playing the game that they want to play, right? So like I have played Conan every scenario, often multiple times. Like I've played all of Conan, all of it. Like I have played a ton of Conan. And I think that's awesome. Is it the game I always want to play? No, but if it's a game that's going to get played, well then yeah, I'll play it. I still like playing it more than not playing a board game, with my family. So sometimes you have to do that. I think some people like playing it more than others. Some people, only like doing it maybe once a week or even once a month, and you just kind of have to be okay with that. But if you're trying to encourage them to play more, I would maybe have them start picking it, or just try something new, maybe that looks exciting or that's different. Or what I will often do is I'll call my wife over and have her look at a campaign page, for like a Kickstarter, and be like, does that look cool? And if she's like, yeah, it looks awesome, or whatever, then I'll back it. And then a year later, her wife says, oh, is that game? And then she gets excited and we play it, right? Like that's often how you do it. You get them involved in. At least that's what I've done. But I guess also just patience. But again, I've not had the direct issue. My family's been pretty okay with playing board games with me, so that's not too bad. Okay, do you think the Diablo board game will be the worst board game to raise 10 million? Okay, so I got some opinions here. I actually just downloaded Diablo 2 Resurrection on the PlayStation, so I could play it on my portal. Diablo 2 was probably one of the games my wife and I played together the most in our entire lives. We've played a few MMOs quite a bit as well. I know we played like Borderlands a lot as well, but Diablo specifically is a love that we both have. I love ARPGs. I like Dungeon Siege. I like it all. I like I even remember, like on the PSP, there was one. I can't even think of the name now. Maybe you guys remember, but there was like a PlayStation ones, like for consoles that I would play. Sacred. I loved the Sacred series, right? I love ARPGs. I love the builds of it. I like playing Grim Dawn. I like Titan Quest. I one of my favorite genres. In fact, I may have been a mistake to say JRPGs really early on in this around my favorite video game genre. I love ARPGs. I love the builds you can do and the combat style and the loot-driven portion of it. I love loot-driven games. So obviously, Diablo's coming out, and I'm kind of excited for that. That being said, I'm not sure an ARPG can properly translate fully to a board game. The problem is the different medium, and the problem is playing single player versus not playing single player, right? And that's the fundamental difference, I think, between something like a video game and something like a board game. So you can co-op in an ARPG, but the other person can go off and do crap too while you're looking at that. Because I think one of the big things I want from an ARPG, I guess there's a few things. If you don't know, ARPG stands for Action RPG. It typically means isometric top-down view where you're going around and you're like attacking a whole bunch of things and you get a whole bunch of loot, and then you have these like bosses and mini bosses and stuff that do that. I haven't played Lost Ark the MMO, and I played that for like over 100 hours because, again, I love ARPGs. So I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff like Diablo. And I like the idea, and Massive Darkness did this a little bit for me, right? Where it's like the main enemies are easily dispatched. You're not ever in a concern there. Oh, Torchlight 2, something I played a ton of. Again, I love these things. And then you get a whole bunch of loot and stuff like that, and you have your bags and you sell them and enhance them and stuff like that. And then you have these like elite enemies that often buff or somehow interact with the little guys. So these little guys are no problem, but this guy keeps resurrecting them. So you got to go get him. Or this guy has an aura that gives them all like stuff that like, you know, goes through your armor like butter or something like that. So now all of a sudden they're very hard and you have to take out the elite to be able to deal with that. And that will just be found randomly on the field. And then you have the big boss fights. They're also hard. They'll often have like telegraphed attacks and all sorts of stuff like that. That's 50%. The other 50% I feel, and why stuff like Path of Exile and why stuff like Grim Dawn does so well, is the aspect of building a character both through skills, abilities, and equipment. So you want equipment sets. It's a good ARPG, in my opinion, if I'm sitting there in my inventory trying to decide between which boot I want, because one boot gives me +1 to my necromancy skills, and then also plus 20% acid damage, but this other one has twice the armor and makes it to where if I die, I pop back up with health again or whatever. And I'm like, oh, which one do I want? And I have to decide that over a series of time, and it's a grueling decision. I love it when it's crunchy and there's all these numbers, and I have to figure out the proper build for my setup and my skills, and I can combine my gear with my skills to enhance. They both enhance each other, and I'm stronger for it. And if I wanted to, I could play the same thing completely. I love it. Can you do that in a board game with a whole bunch of people around the table? I'm not sure. I know a lot of people talk about the loot tables and distribution, and there's talk that you get, like, let's say you roll to see what you get. Oh, I got a chess piece, and then it's sleeved like in hate and stuff like that, and you can do overlay cards for stats, and then you randomly draw 3 stats, boom, that's what you got. Like, you could do stuff like that, I guess, but that's only part of the problem, right? Or part of the thing that I like about RPGs. I do think it'll do very well. It's going to have minis. Glass Cannon's doing very good as a company, they're I'm sure they're going to do a great job at it. I don't know if it'll be for me the game I have in my head, but the game I have in my head is a video game, like intrinsically, because it's a single player thing, and maybe it's single player. But then do I want a single-player board game Diablo, or would I just play Diablo? Right? Like, that's my problem with single players. Like, I'll just play a video game. If I'm alone and I need to play a game, it's going to be a video game. 99 times out of 100, right? So, anyway, yeah. I do think it'll do very well, though. And I will probably be one of those 10 million because it's worth a shot. That's a good question. I like that one. Okay, let's see. I'm not sure either. Just a second tweet I read today. Oh, okay. All right, interesting. Just today, too, huh? King of Tokyo worked every time for me. I've not played King of Tokyo. I want to, though. My son wants to as well, so we need to get it. I thought of snagging King of Tokyo because of one roommate who loves competitive and plays some stuff with me because he wants to win. Oh, you know, that's another thing, actually. When it comes to having people play, especially, this is the thing I learned, right? Because, okay, so I backed this game on Kickstarter, right? And so I've read all about it, I know all about it, and then I get the game, and then I read through the rulebook end to end. And so I know every rule, I know all of that. And so I have now spent a lot of time with this game. I've watched people play it, I've watched all the GIFs, I've read all the strategies from their updates and stuff like that, and now it's time to play the game, and it's a competitive game. So we get to the table, everybody else is new to it, me, I'm well versed in this now, and guess who can probably easily win that first game? The guy who's like read everything, right? Like, that's just in general the case. You have more experience with it. And, you know, I've played a lot of board games. Not everybody at the table has. Your roommate obviously hasn't. So if it's a competitive game, especially if they like to win, or even if they don't, if it's a competitive game, let them win. Let them win the first game. If you stop them the first game, they're not going to want a second game. Who would want that? Oh, you remember that game where, you know, like, I felt like I couldn't do anything and you just utterly destroyed me and wiped me off the map? Yeah, we should play that one again. That was fun. No. Now, it depends on the person. Not everybody's super competitive. My son loves to play the game. He doesn't care if he wins or loses. Like, that's just, again, everything is awesome for him. But, other people are not necessarily that way. Most people aren't. So, that being said, a lot of people don't want you just to throw the game too. So often what I'll do is I'll build challenges in with myself. Like, maybe I can do this without using my ultimate ability. And I'll just try to beat him without using my ultimate. Like, I'll somehow handicap myself, kind of like you do that before there were achievements in video games, that's what we used to do, right? Like, can I beat this game without using this overpowered character build, or without doing this one cheese mechanic, or without doing this, or only doing these, or with all starting equipment? Video games used to have a thing that would stop you from leveling up so you could beat it level 1 if that's what you wanted to do to challenge yourself, right? So there's things like that I do so that I'm still playing at my fullest and really trying to also explore the game and stuff like that. But the first game, if it's competitive, you should probably let the new people win. It's fun for experienced players as well as newbies alike, and doesn't overstay its welcome. That's good. I appreciate that. It's perfect for that scenario, and it's still a modern game for that Monopoly. Like, yeah, definitely. I need to try that out. Chris, if you've also made the plunge to Baldur's Gate 3, it is on my Santa wishlist. I'm hoping Santa buys it for me. And your thoughts, if you have. It's my first foray into D&D, and I'm digging it. So I do have a bit of a hot take around this style of game. I love the style of game. So I'm all for that. Again, it's kind of a CRPG kind of thing. My first video I ever made on this channel, it's not a thing anymore. It was actually a video game, and it was based on Divinity Original Sin 2. And I really liked Divinity Original Sin 2. Like, the gameplay, awesome. There's some faults, right? There's some issues. So getting giant barrels of poison and keeping in my inventory seems kind of silly. Get rid of the weight system if you're going to do that, right? So, like, okay. But the world you build and the stories you can interact with, love it. Awesome, super cool. And I'm super excited for that for Baldur's Gate 3. The one thing I didn't like about a lot of these kind of D&D RPG games, just in general, is I feel like the storytelling is actually kind of immature. So there's a few things there. The first one, and I've heard this about Baldur's Gate 3, and it's typical with most video games, is any kind of relationship mechanic in the game is written as if a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old wrote it instead of like a mature adult. And I'm in my 30s, and I, like to me, you liking a character or a person or getting a relationship, there should be more nuance to it than what's there. It's a very black and white, can I unlock the scene or not kind of thing, right? And I've always hated that. I didn't ever like when BioWare did the like light side, dark side kind of flip, right? I very much enjoyed more of like their Dragon Age Origins kind of stuff, where like you went in and it was very gray on what you were doing, or a lot of CD Projekt Red stuff is kind of like this, right? Where, you know, it's just very much more nuanced. But even then, like the relationship stuff in like Cyberpunk or something like that, where it's like, oh, if you want to get with this person, just agree to everything they ever do, because that's how relationships work in real life, right? And it just takes me out. It's so stupid that like, I don't agree with that, but if I ever disagree with you, then now we're not together again, or whatever. It just, so that storytelling's a little low. And then I think a lot of the characters often can be low as well. Now, again, this is a little bit of a hot take, but when it comes to, and this is board game narratives too. Like this is just something I see a lot, where like it's so cliche, and not even like in a good anime kind of way, where it's like, so I played Divinity Original Sin 2, and you had like and Dragon Age Origins was the same kind of way, where it's like this cookie cutter kind of like, oh, it's a witch that actually has kind of a good side, but it's still kind of dark and edgy, and she's shunned from the village. I've never heard that before. Tell me more. Or like Alistar, right? Or Alistair or whatever. Or even there was the guy in Divinity Original Sin 2, same exact story. It's like, oh, I'm actually the son of a noble person, and I should be king, but I don't want that. I'm going to do this stuff instead, because I'm going to reject my calling to be, a noble or whatever. Like, okay, yeah, and tell me your first D&D character again. Like, that's thrilling. Or this was Divinity Original Sin 2 as well. I'm a witch, but I'm multiple personalities, so sometimes I'm wild and goofy, and other times I'm like, okay, you just want to roleplay as Harley Quinn. I get it. I get the ideal. I want to roleplay as Harley Quinn, but does every like witch need dual personality? One knows magic and is eccentric, and one is like normal and not, or nice and mean, or whatever flip-flop personality thing you want to throw in. And I get bored of that. So I hope, and I don't know, I've not played Baldur's Gate 3. I hope Baldur's Gate 3 elevates that closer to the kind of more mature storytelling and relationship building that I want to see from a story-based game. That's my hope. I do hope so, because I love the gameplay style stuff. Like all the environmental stuff in Divinity was super cool, right? But I struggle so much with D&D characters and how interesting they are, and how unique they are, and how edgy backstory they have, and just how they prove that not everybody should write stories. Right? It was kind of my problem with tabletop RPGs is I want like an author to like DM something that I did, right? Not necessarily, do the typical like, oh, let's do, oh, there's a necromancer out there. Oh no. So that's kind of my problem with that. But Baldur's Gate 3 is actually at the top of my list, along with the Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 1. Even though it's a bad deal and it's a stupid remake, I'll still be able to play the games, so that's cool. That was my first rated M game I ever played, unless you count Mortal Kombat, but I had to turn the blood off. My mom made me do it. Okay, let's see. That's a good question, especially with Baldur's Gate. We need like we need a board game, right? Well, in the D&D universe. Do you have any hidden gem cooperative games that aren't too complicated but still offers strategic decisions? Hidden gem cooperative game. Oh man, so you got like a few things here. Okay, so it needs to be not well known. It needs to be cooperative. It needs to not be complicated but still offer strategic decisions. Once again, Oko. So underrated. I don't know why it doesn't get more coverage, except that Red Joker doesn't do good at like the whole like outreach thing and crowdfunding thing and communication thing and stuff like that. So I just don't think they work with a lot of people, and if they do pitch it, like I don't remember how I even first started talking to them. I think I just liked their game and started talking about it. And that was probably one of the few companies where I like reached out to them or something like that. I was early on, but I love it. It plays so different than other dungeon crawls. You can play it as a one-off, like a Zombicide style thing, or you can play it in a short little series that actually go together. But still, it's only 3, maybe 4. But it plays so different where you're trying to like discover the demon, and it does really good there. And again, the card placement on, do I put it on the left or the right, and how do I use that? So awesome. The gear in there is really cool. The scenarios are different. I love it. It's such a hidden gem. More people need to know about Oko Chronicles, and it's really good. Now you said cooperative, and you can now play that cooperative. That's why I'm mentioning that it was 1 versus many before, and now it doesn't have to be. So I'm still going to count that. But if nothing else, even if it's not, 1 versus many is still all cooperative, but one guy, right? Nice seeing you live, man. Felt like usual casual KOA. Well, I do try to do that. I know I didn't at first, obviously. You got to get used to talking to a camera, right? But yeah, I just always try to be real with you guys. It helps that that's how I do my videos as well, right? I just try to have a conversation with y'all. Played with you in my Oathsworn game. You're still alive. Yes. Okay, good. I don't know if I give the best buff or not. I think there's some other good alternatives, but that is pretty funny. I've actually enjoyed hearing how often and how I've died from people who are like, yeah, you didn't make it, sorry bud, but you let us all escape, so that's good. Like, you took one for the team. I'm like, happy to be of service. That's funny. Okay, Hendrik says, with Retaliation being streamlined Nemesis, do you think the Zyrians will add to the game or overcomplicate it? Talking expectations because info is scarce. Well, it's hard to tell, right? I think that for a game like Nemesis, it's not going to get too complicated. I understand that there's some streamlining involved with Retaliation, but at the same time, I haven't seen anything that pops out that's like, oh no, that looks like cumbersome or anything like that. But again, I'm not typically like attuned as a pet peeve for any kind of finickiness or anything like that. Like I like games that are chunky. They're not necessarily rules heavy. They can be. It depends on how well those rules go. I don't like different systems, right? So if a rule set has a complex rule set, I'm more okay with it than here's a whole bunch of separate rule sets they're doing. That's one of my problems with Euro games and why I don't necessarily like them as much, because it's like, oh, if you're doing this thing, it plays differently than all the rest of the stuff, and it's way different, and it's this, right? So like with Tainted Grail, I didn't like the card game versus the map part of it, right? It's one of my struggles with a lot of these other games that have a really big exploration thing, unless it's big enough to where it's just 2 big chunks. Like I felt like Aeon Trespass did that kind of well, and maybe I'm growing more accustomed to it, but for the most part, like if this is a game and that's the rule set, I'm pretty okay with that. I don't see anything that stood out to me anyway. If you're looking at a specific mechanic, let me know. But I didn't see anything that stood out to me. D&D campaign series. Not sure. I don't play D&D. I like my board games to get as close to D&D as possible without being D&D. So kind of like the arena kind of, the contest kind of stuff, right? Where it's very similar, even with the D20 rolling on that. I like structure. And so if it gets too open-ended, right, like that's my problem. And often that's kind of my case with board games too. Like I don't want on my turn to have 18 different options. I really don't. I want it. Give me seven solid options, and I'll pick between those and mull around which one do I want to do, right? It's part of why I like the point of interest system in Chronicles of Drunagar so much. It's kind of like that, right? Where it's like, oh, you come up to a scene. It's kind of like a D&D thing, right? Like you come up to a scene, and oh my gosh, there's this guy, and he's hanging there, and there's this dead body. And like, well, okay, well, what do you do? Do you like search for the body? You poke it with a stick? Like, what do you do? In D&D, that's like so open that it's just like, I don't know. I dig dirt for half an hour. Like I could do anything. Like, and to me, I like the structure that a board game provides to kind of navigate that. And I think it helps storytelling as well, because it's not just like there's a story coming, and I can choose how I experience that story, but only on the path that it provides me, right? So it's not just like I hightail it back and go back to the end. That's dumb, like there's none of that kind of stuff. So I don't really do any D&D stuff, just for that reason. But structured board games that are like D&D, I love. I think that's awesome. Cyberpunk isn't like that. You can disagree with things. It's just if there is too much difference, it doesn't work out. Sort of like real life. Kind of. I mean, I've looked into it a little bit, and because I've been playing through Cyberpunk actually now, and like there are certain things where it's like, if you don't agree with this person at this time, no, like it's a no. Right, there's still like this list of you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this at these important points. There's some in between stuff where like, oh, maybe you walk up and they're like arguing or whatever, and you can be like, nah, that's dumb or whatever, and they're not like gonna like hate you forever for it. But that's just because it's not one of the like keys to unlocking that relationship. And I don't know, it a lot of times, anytime you're forced to like, oh, I have to do this, I can't just like casually disagree or explain it or have them get over it or something like that. It's like, no, that means now they don't like you in that way or whatever, right? But I will agree, CD Projekt Red does it better than I feel I saw in a lot of D&D games or BioWare games, where it's very stringent, right? Where it's just like, oh, you just pretend they're the most amazing person ever. Always agree with them, yes, always, and then you're good to go. But you're right, Cyberpunk does do it a little bit more nuanced, but there are still those key things. And it's kind of hard because, I mean, from a programming perspective, it's kind of like an if-else. It's like a case statement, right? It's just like, checkbox, primary key. All right, you're good as long as you got all those, right? But there are those key things where if you say no, then it's no, or there's no like coming back later, whatever. And some of that's just pre-writing a story, right? Like you have to kind of have a path, and if the player, you just assume, oh no, halfway through the end we came back. Like you can't always program that in, right? So it's like, no, you chose the end, you go to the end. I can understand the limitations in video games, but that does tend to be a sore point for me. It just doesn't seem as natural. Imagine you could force any company to do a Kickstarter with any IP. Which company, game genre, and IP would it be? Okay, so the IP is easy. It'd be Dragon Ball Z. That would be easy. Just because all my kids love it. It could be a hit at this game table. We'd be playing it a lot if it was a good game. So game genre, obviously it has to be a story-based battle. Think like the video game Kakarot, but like in a board game, right? So you're going through it, you're doing the whole, now you're on Nampa, and now you're, fighting Frieza or Cell or the androids or whatever, or, like all that would be obviously a lot of fun. And they could do like a kid's version that's like Dragon Ball, like it'd be sweet. You'd have some like crazy expansion GT. I don't know, but either way, that would be the IP easily. It amazes me that we don't have a legit like board game for it, just kind of some card game kind of stuff, because Japanese card games are like all the rage, right? What company would make it? So what genre? Yeah, so kind of a boss battle thing, probably closer to like Kingdoms Forlorn, where sometimes you have the little fights, like, oh, we're fighting all the like little Cell Juniors or something like that, right? For the most part, I think it'd be boss battle, right? It's a shonen, right? You got to have the boss battles, right? You got to be against Frieza and all this stuff. But then obviously the narrative too and stuff like that, and characters die and then you're in the afterlife and stuff. It'd be kind of fun. What company? That's a hard one. I'm not sure, honestly, because I don't know exactly what that looks like. I think if I was to pick anything, I would probably do Into the Unknown, just because they relied so heavily on a lot of the tropes that Dragon Ball Z has, that Shonen has, with like transformations and coming back from the brink and stuff like that in Aeon Trespass, that I think they could they have a good understanding of what makes Dragon Ball Z exciting, I think. And they've already done boss battles, and they already have at least a system that could maybe be adjusted to be able to do that. Both through the teamwork stuff of helping with the dice pool and the tokens there, and then of course also doing the kind of epic tale that it would be and stuff like that. So that's probably what I would do. I'd have Into the Unknown do a Dragon Ball Z game. Let's make that happen. Okay, Starfield is so bad for that. Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, Skyrim and all those have always been kind of silly like that. I mean, it's just, it's a very common thing in video games. They haven't done it very well. I'm not sure they have, like, real relationships with with people in that industry to understand how to write it. Sometimes they do. Like, I know it gets kind of a joke, like, when you get, like, Uncharted and stuff like that, when it's like, oh, it's like the Light of the Wife game, right? Because that's what he does. But he's not a perfect character. He's not supposed to be, right? Nathan Drake, that is. But you get that sort of thing, right, where, oh, you have a relationship where, like, they tease each other and stuff like that, and you just don't get that in the D&D games that I see. There's not a lot of that anyway, not to where it seems just, like, super natural. But again, that's because it's not a choice. It's a writer being able to actually tell a story versus create your own story in this sandbox world, and that's just so much harder to do something like that in, that I can kind of understand it. Okay, guys, well, it is now 10:30. I think this has been a long one, and I think we should probably wrap it up. So we'll do one more from Travis. He got one in. Most underrated board game accessory. Ooh, accessories are good. I actually want to do a thing on accessories at one point. I don't know if it's underrated or not, but card holders. So, like, I got a few from Zombicide and Vader back in the day. I used that for other games. I want to, like, 3D print some. Super underrated, because when you get sleeved cards, a lot of board games have decks that go way larger than the sleeved cards should support, so they get sliding around and stuff like that. And you're welcome, Travis. And I really appreciate being able to, like, slot them in something so they stay there. Like, to me, that's huge. I don't care about piles of tokens on the ground or something like that. I think that's fine. Card holders, I've never been, like, a big fan of, just because I actually do like holding cards. I know some people bend them and stuff like that, but I don't mind doing that. But having a container for sleeved cards specifically is a godsend if you can do that. So that is something I think people should invest in more, as a card holder that can, like, expand to accept different size cards, right? That you can just kind of put them in there just so they stay piled up, because otherwise you get that nasty pile and it falls everywhere, and it's a mess. Especially small ones often do that a lot too. So that'd probably be the most underrated board game accessory I can recommend. All right, guys, that's it. I need to go get, like, a real drink, not just coffee, and soothe the throat a little bit. I hope you enjoyed this. It's a blast. I love talking with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it as well, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will have some more content here soon, of course. Obviously, I got to unbox Nova Aetis. This is just the Wave 1, though, so we'll wait another 18 years for Wave 2, but at least we have Wave 1 now to keep us company, so that'll be exciting. I got a few more unboxings in store. Got a review coming up here, too. Obviously, end-of-year stuff, so there's going to be a fundraiser, of course. If you can be a part of that, I would really appreciate it, of course, but don't feel obligated to. It's just a nice way to support the channel in a little bit more independent way, where I have a little bit more control over it versus working with necessarily other companies, stuff like that. But I also want to do more for the channel. I want to go to more conventions, stuff like that for you guys, and meet more of you, and I think that would be great, too. So that'll be fun. Of course, top 10's coming up. Big 2024 videos coming up, so stay tuned for that as well. And yeah, I'll let you guys go. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.